Hello friends, and welcome back to the Dancing Hut of Baba Yaga, presented by the Bad Decisions Club. Yes, I checked the volume levels. We are good to go. Friends, say hello.
Are we
Hello.
on though?
Yes, you are. We're good to go.
Gotta ask the
You,
real
you
question.
gotta ask. It's been a while since we've been live, so like, yeah, it's worth asking. I see Wiz in the chat. I see Mommy Baker in the chat. Great to see you two. Thank you for being here. So today is a little bit different, right? We're not really doing a game. We're more taking a look at this wonderful module that we just went through. We're going to talk a little bit about it, give it a bit of a review, maybe share some of our favorite memories of what happened over the last 10 sessions. You all spent 10 sessions in or approaching the Dancing Hut of Baba Yaga. Uh-oh, we lost Gale. So we're going to go ahead and do quick introductions, but you don't have to introduce a character this time, right? It's just you. So why don't we go top to bottom on my screen? We'll start with M. Who are you? We don't know you.
I am a vessel for cookies.
That is an excellent answer. So we have Cookie Monster in the house.
Here.
Gail, looks like you're back. And hey, you leaving and coming back doesn't mess up my cameras in this particular view, so that's nice.
Yeah.
I guess I normally play whatever character is there. I'm usually considered once over key in all of the places.
We got
Right now, vessel for cookies.
We got Jen next. Who are you? How are you doing tonight?
I'm Jen. I'm also known as the Swedish Geek Ball. I'm doing okay. I am not currently having an allergic reaction, so I think I may not be allergic to tomatoes. So if that continues, I'm fantastic.
Did you believe before that you were allergic to tomatoes?
I've it's plopped up on an allergy list as very slight, and I had a bad reaction the last time I had the tomato soup that I ate. So yes, I was afraid that I was allergic to tomatoes.
I hear allergies come and go. I don't know how true that is. Jeff, how are you? And who are you today?
Today I am Jeff. I'm not playing our resident sorcerer and man with delusions of mediocrity.
You try so hard.
So instead I am just me, a normal person with delusions of mediocrity.
Okay, the word normal is doing a lot of heavy lifting there, but I mean, none of us are normal here. And finally, Gail, sadly, my name is kind of in front of the bottom of your face, which is just a part of using Google Meet, and I'm sorry. Who are you? How you doing?
Hi, I'm Gail or Olivia, and I'm totally not doing a closet cosplay. Let's go.
Okay, so if you have not been around, we, for the last 10 sessions, have been running this module, The Dancing Hut of Baba Yaga, written by Dave Colson. You can find him at weird_Dave on Twitter. You should definitely give him a follow. This is, spoiler alert, a pretty quality module as far as I'm concerned personally. But
What is his handle?
weird_Dave. And yeah, so we're gonna spend today talking a little bit about the module. We're gonna go through the rooms that you already went into. We'll talk a little bit about the rooms that you didn't. We'll give our opinions. We'll talk about what I changed and what I kept the same, what sort of threads we wove in there, and what your favorite memories are of the time. So, to start with, I want to show you really quick the layout of the Dancing Hut of Baba Yaga, because one of the biggest challenges in this module for me when I was first starting to figure it out is navigation, right? Figuring out what rooms connect to what rooms. And Jeff, I know that you have like a full-on like diagram of what rooms that you went to connect to what rooms. I'm going to go ahead and switch over my screen really quick. So here we have, on the left is the outer layer where you spent most of your time. The outer layer is shaped like a 20-sided die. Thank you for your subscription, Jeff. Is shaped like a 20-sided die with each room roughly having 3 other rooms that it connects to. Yeah? And then the inner layer on the right is the shape of an 8-sided die. You only spent a very small amount of time in there. You did get to interact with it a little bit. And then finally, the core layer, which you didn't really interact with at all, at least not on camera, is a 4-sided tetrahedron sort of thing. So they really took like the platonic solids, the dice shapes, and made it into a map for the Dancing Hut, which I really liked and I really appreciated personally. It made navigation the #1 challenge, in addition to all of the other social or combat or exploration things that you had to do. You really had to try to keep track of what goes where, because it's very easy to get lost in a map like that.
Well, I mean, in the idea of it, it is, but as far as our play style went, we kind of went in one straight line and came back, and then in one straight line and came back. I think maybe because we were warned, it might be hard to navigate. We really didn't branch much.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I normally we start these sessions with a recap of the last session. As a spoiler, the last session that we actually ran was a bit of an epilogue where our heroes came out of the Dancing Hut of Baba Yaga, but because me and technology sometimes fight really badly, I lost that footage. It wasn't super big or super exciting, but we'll talk a little bit about it later anyway. And so you... Coming to the Dancing Hut of Baba Yaga, right? This module does not presuppose any sort of hooks. It gives some ideas as to what you might want to do. But for us, it was the fact that this hut is showing up at a period of time in history that is extraordinarily important, right? You've got this magical energy that's gathering underneath the continent that you're on. And suddenly, just as this war is breaking out and just as these big rituals are happening and this world-shattering magic is being called, suddenly, boom, there's Baba Yaga. And that's almost never a good sign. Yeah?
Not
I
at
struggle
all.
to think it ever being a good sign, so I'm okay with saying never.
Probably never.
I
Thursday.
wouldn't say never. There are some tales and legends where Baba Yaga is kind of like a test that the protagonist needs to get through and thus is better equipped afterwards. But yeah, most of the time she goes from neutral to antagonistic.
And that's sort of the important thing about this is Baba Yaga herself in this module comes in 3 forms, okay? There's Baba Yaga the mother, who is the sort of kindest of the 3, but when we say mother, we kind of mean the sort of manipulative, abusive mother, right? She does the love bomb thing sometimes, and she'll seem like she's very altruistic, but of course she's not. She's one of the most selfish beings in the multiverse. And the second one is Baba Yaga the wicked, who is usually who you would come in contact with if you're going into combat. And then finally, Baba Yaga the hungry, the Baba Yaga that eats children, right? The Baba Yaga who could just eat an entire ogre all at once, which thankfully you didn't have to see and I didn't have to describe.
Point of order: they all eat children. They're just that they compartmentalize it to one personality.
Yeah.
Doesn't absolve that.
No, not at all, not at all. But like from a mechanical point of view, Baba Yaga the hungry is much more melee focused, whereas Wicked and Mother are much more of the spellcasting type. Yeah. So when you approached the hut, there is a fog bank all around. That comes directly from the module. There's a fog bank that gets more and more dense as you get closer to the hut. We rolled a random encounter that happened to be werewolves again. This is the 2nd or 3rd time we've rolled werewolves as a random encounter, so it's definitely been a through line. And after the fight, there was like a corridor in the mist that opened up to bring you to the Dancing Hut. Now, at the time, I had not yet formulated what story I wanted to tell. So I wasn't sure who opened that corridor at all. And...
Oh, that wasn't just a given in the module?
No, that was something I came up with on my own. Because I didn't want you wandering in the woods forever, and also I liked the idea of having an open invitation, essentially, to let you know that you're supposed to be going this way. On the screen, yeah, go ahead.
With things as they turned out, I guess we can now say it was Tasha that did that.
Yes, which again I did not know at the time. I came up with the Tasha twist long after this point. Over here we have the map of the outside of the dancing hut. The dancing hut is surrounded by a fence made of skulls, basically. These skulls can fire basically eldritch blasts if you try to fly over them. And at the very front is the very self-important Carmen? What did I name him? Khotan, which I didn't name him.
I would have
Khotan.
never remembered that.
I-
Absolutely not.
I have to say, having a couple of players that take notes and remember names has been just the best thing as a DM. It's the best thing.
It's not me. I didn't do it.
Well, no, I think you did name the guy as Dell.
That's true. Dell knew some stuff already, right?
I have it in a text message, but I don't know how far away that was from now.
So,
Fair.
a few things about the outside of the hut, okay? First off, the fog. Secondly, any creature of the beast type who spends a long rest in a 20-mile radius has their intelligence scores raised to 7 and they can understand common. And in fact, I believe an owl talked to you at one point before you went into the hut. Like, it was a very small little in passing thing.
Oh yeah, it was right after the ambush with the werewolves.
And also,
Oh, yeah.
and also, enchantment spells are more difficult to resist. So there's like what's the anti-bless? Bane. There's like a Bane that subtracts 1d6 from any saving throws on enchantment spells. So the entire area becomes this sort of magical fairy tale forest, right? And Baba Yaga is the driving force behind an awful lot of fairy tales, especially the darker and more grim, as it were, fairy tales. And you talked your way through the fence by making Khotan by giving Khotan some oil for his hinges, and making nice with him. And he's like, well, I suppose I can let you pass through. Yeah. So your first challenge was that. I loved playing as Khotan. That was awesome. And then there's the hut itself. Now, do you recall how it is you got the hut to settle down? Because it was standing up, right?
Little hut, please open your door.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure I pulled that directly from the module. Although when I said it was a weird combination of common and giant, that was me. Because it felt like something that, you should have to do a little bit of work for it. Yeah? And the hut settled down, opened its doors. There are options for attacking the hut. If you attack the legs and deal a certain amount of damage, it will settle down and you can make your way in. But that's not how you handled it. You handled it, yeah. I mean, the hut's innocent by itself. It's not out there to hurt anybody.
I don't think that's true, but that's a very rude way to get in the door.
Any sort of fond memories or anything you wanted to say about the outside of the hut before we move into the entry hall?
Not at this juncture.
Yeah, this was kind of a just get to the place, but there were a couple of really nice little interactions that I enjoyed.
Yeah. I did like us completely flying over the fog bank once and then having to land and go walk through it and be like, shit, we missed it. Like, we'd flown over it first and we're like, cool, we'll just, get past the fog bank and there it'll be. And nope, it's actually in the center. We actually have to go walk and be in it.
Now, the entryway to the hut is a very small room. I mean, I say small, but it's like 5, 10, 15, 20. It's like 25 feet across. Yeah, 30 feet at the very center. And this is the cabin in the woods of legend, right? This is where Hansel and Gretel came to. In fact, I believe I specifically described the oven as being child-sized.
Why did you do that, you horrible, horrible man?
It was written that way in the module. Look.
I mean, we're in the hut of Baba Yaga. There's really no skirting around the point. She puts children in that oven.
And as we continue, I want to mention that unlike previous modules that I ran, this is the first module that did not exist on Fantasy Grounds before I started. So all of the descriptions, all of the images, all of the stats for the monsters that don't exist anywhere else, I imported those by hand. And it was a lot of work. It was worth it, but it was a lot of work. I definitely think that Fantasy Grounds should take on this module because I think the writer, Dave Coulson, deserves more royalties for this.
Yeah.
And in this interior, you met the first very subtle but not so subtle evidence of Baba Yaga's cruelty. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Vladimir, right?
Vladimir the cat, yes. Vladimir the cat, who you sort of made friends with. You gave him some food, and you found out that he was declawed.
So, with the name of Vladimir, is the implication that he's a vampire that got transformed into a cat, or no?
It doesn't say anything like that in the book, but maybe. I assume it's because Baba Yaga, I believe, was originally a Russian fairy tale, I think, or some sort of like Eastern Europe,
No,
East Asian kind of
very
thing.
Slavic and yeah.
So I assume that's where the name came from. He was very, very nice, and you had this note in the middle of the table, right? And the note said, "Join me in my private chambers and we can speak. Bring with you a black pudding and blah, 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 blah." There were some things that you had to find. Don't harm the Green Sisters. I made that up. And when I wrote that, I assumed that it was Baba Yaga herself that was making that overture to you. Yeah?
Yeah.
And that's not the only thing that was in this room, right? This room is also full of herbs and spices and all sorts of alchemical things. I believe that Maven really loved
Maven,
being in here.
Maven, because that was back when Maven was still quite still naive to many. Like, she's her first big adventure, and she's gonna like help people, and you know it. She was such a, for being like generally one of the oldest people in the group, she was like a baby.
I have to ask, do we still have the walking stick from this room?
There was the walking stick that extended, right? That you were able
Yeah.
to use to get at the trap door in the roof.
Did we keep that? I think it
Calder
was
still
Calder that used it.
I think Calder still has it. I don't remember giving it up.
So people are gonna have a hard time getting through that attic.
Seems like a they. That seems like a they problem.
Sounds like a them problem. I agree.
See, they made a mistake of letting me take something.
I love this room so much because it gives a really incredible sense of, like I said, walking into a fairy tale, right? You're in this like dirt floor hut that is very quaint and very cozy and just slightly like uncanny in certain ways, and it gives a really good idea of what's to come. Right? It's just a nice little place to get your bearings. How did you all find this entryway? Did this like inspire feelings of warmth and goodness in you, or was it more like unsettling?
Unsettling. It was just too normal for what was to come.
It felt very much like a threshold. Like, here's your preview. If you go further, that's on you.
Yeah. Yeah, and this hut, or this room, is not on the inner layer of the hut. This is actually considered to be sort of in the between layer. It's kind of like in between whatever weird demiplane or demiplanes make up the hut, and we'll talk about that in a minute, and the real world. Yeah. And one of the big things about the hut that I really liked is there is no teleportation, no communication with the outside world. It is very insulated, right? The moment you walked into there, you were cut off. There was no checking in with the folks back at the Stone Tooth. There was no checking in with your allies, your friends. As long as you're in the hut, you are there and you have to be fully present while you're in there, which is another thing about this module that I really liked.
We did find out later that you can send to people in different places in the hut, but just not outside of the hut. Like the spell sending.
That was a conceit that I came up with because I don't remember why it was that you wanted to do a sending, but it seemed like a good idea at the time, so I went ahead and allowed that.
She messaged the pit fiend after we had left the museum to ask a few questions.
We'll get there.
Yeah.
So the interior, staging ground, really love it. From there, you have a couple of different exits. But I believe did you go directly upstairs to the kitchen?
No.
No, we went out a door first.
You went out the door first. So the door to the north, which takes you to the entry hall, which I will pull up right now. Ah, yes.
Rainbow room.
The rainbow room indeed.
Loved the rainbow room.
Yeah, so I'll talk a little bit about this. Obviously, I put Warmbow in there because he's a fun little bit of comic relief, and the second time that he greeted Calder with joy, and the second time that he was murdered for it, and I enjoy doing that voice, and I'm glad that you dispatched him, so I didn't have to do it for very long.
The next time it's the banishing spell.
But we're friends, Mr. Calder. Anyway, so
No, thank you.
so
That's why I'm sending you home.
the thing about this room, okay? So let's talk a little bit about what happened here, right? You came in. All of these statues are sort of lightly glowing with different colors, right? There are 6 statues, 6 colors, and as you were exploring, you found that there was a gnome, like, somehow stuck in the space between colors, right? Somehow had been absorbed into this room and was unable to even be seen except through some pretty difficult perception checks. And the module presents Alvin, I believe his name is, who is stuck, Alvin of the Prismatic Order, stuck in this light trap. But, and here's the thing that I really appreciate, the author does not give a solution to this puzzle. The author leaves it up to the DM and to the players to try to figure out who this person is, how you might rescue them. I obviously had my own ideas of how to do this. And let's talk a little bit about that puzzle. How did you enjoy the colored light puzzle?
It was that perfect blend of just obvious enough that leads you to some interesting ideas, but just off enough to you're not sure and your brain can't quite make that initial grab.
Well,
And
it
I really
allowed
enjoyed
us. Yeah, how you had it was that you were keying the colors into one of the D&D spells, and we had to like do that element or type of effect to get the lights to go brighter. And that's not in the module.
But we hit a hiccup with the purple light, I believe.
Yes.
Yeah, because if you're doing it off of what was it? Is it chromatic orb?
It was the prismatic wall. And that was all me. So I was the one who decided that these colors would be keyed to certain effects from prismatic wall, right? And if you cast something that, and I see Gail's looking it up, if you cast something that matches with the color, it would brighten and illuminate the statue so that it was. And also, like, Fantasy Grounds is so good for this because it meant that I was able to just brighten up the light so that you could see the effect of what you were doing as you were doing it.
Yeah.
Also, if you had attacked any of the statues or damaged them in any way, you would have been in for a really tough fight.
Yeah,
there were.
I've had.
Go ahead. Yeah, there were.
There were 6 crystal golems.
Yeah, not golems. They were a type of wraith that were bound to. So you would have had to face what are called war wraiths. Yeah, it would not have been good. Would not have been good. And if they had attacked you, I've got this written down. If they had attacked you while Warmbow was still alive, he would have warned you to leave, come back in 10 minutes. He would have said, like, get out of the room, they'll calm down, just come back in 10 minutes. So this was a very difficult combat encounter that you all were able to bypass because of your cleverness and the puzzle.
Yeah, as I recall, the actual hiccup, the thing that materially blocked us was the purple light causes blindness.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
And-
no one had like deafness, blindness prepared.
or ready as a spell. But fortunately, we brought our own blind.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we did.
That was
a
a
blind person.
That was a very interesting solution. So you used, I assume, green, orange is actually acid, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
And then red is fire, I assume, and blue is
Of
ice.
course.
And you managed to activate all of them except for the purple one. And yeah, Gail, you were just like, well, I'm blind. Let's just put a hand on it and see what happens. And
Yeah.
you know me, I'm the kind of DM that's like, wow, that's really creative and awesome. It works. Like, I love that. That makes me so happy. And yeah, so Alvin, spelled with a Y, is a member of the Prismatic Order, which is a group on the elemental plane of air. Chances are good that the people that were after him he was there for stealing shit, right? And chances are good that the people who were after him forgot that he ever existed. Yeah, this was one of my favorite rooms. I really enjoyed watching you all like figure this out and like put 2 and 2 together and then come up with a solution that worked. For those of you who are watching who didn't see it, the solution was to try to get all 6 colors to overlap in one space, at which point Alvin would be solid enough to step out of the colored light. Right?
Yeah.
Because so long as he was in only 1 or 2 of the colors at a time, he was very incorporeal, very difficult to see. But as you put more and more of these lights together, he became stronger and more solid.
He also gave us his spell book and the Cloak of Scintillating Colors, which did come in handy later.
Yeah, I mean, you got some stolen goods, yeah. And then from here, there were a bunch of different places you could have gone. Do you remember which way you went next? Do you remember the room that you did next?
I think it
We
was the
went-
door on the right.
We went to the Vine Gardens,
Okay,
which we have retconned.
which we have retconned. So the module calls this the Fungal Gardens.
Yep.
Which is that right there. And of course, we have a player who is averse to fungus, which makes sense to me. So we changed it to a sort of vine kind of thing. And this, again, is just one of those rooms that's super goofy, but also really funny. Like the leader, King Beard, was talking about how he has this wonderful, amazing beard. His face is completely shaven or is completely bare. Whenever he talked about his beard, he was rubbing the top of his head. He was like, my beard is the best beard. And this is just a room full of, like, warring, what are they called?
You veggie pygmies?
Veggie pygmies, yes. This is the room where a lot of the food from the Dancing Hut comes from, in the form of fruits and vegetables. And there are like multiple tribes of these veggie pygmies that believe that, some of them believe that the ogres that come in and take the food should be killed and gotten rid of. And some people believe that they're doing their job by feeding everyone in the hut. And it became very clear that these veggie pygmies didn't ever leave this room. And that's a theme that tends to come up a lot in this hut. A lot of people tend to be either stuck where they are or they choose to stay where they're at.
Yeah.
Which is like an insidious little piece of the place. I mean, of course, you'd never want to leave if you've been brainwashed to think you don't want to leave.
The fountain in the center of the garden is filled with oily cold water, blah, blah, blah. If you roll... Oh, man. So if you drink from the fountain, there is a random assortment of very fun things that can happen to you. Things between poison damage, temporary HP, color changes to your skin or hair. One says blinded, which would have been funny for Charlotte.
Would have been.
Hey, no effect.
But none of you did because it was oily and gross looking. However, I believe that King Beard asked you for your help with something, right? He said, could you please
Yeah.
kill the other tribe?
Right, and then I think it was Charlotte that took point in suggesting for them to wait and make an alliance with the ogres when the next come in. Like, she gave a lot of advice, but didn't actually promise any help. But like she's got a decent charisma, so this was one of the rooms that we talked our way past.
Yeah. Yeah, and honestly, if you had gone into combat, so the nice thing about this dancing hut is that some of the combat is nigh impossible. There are some random encounters in here. There is a random encounter with an avatar of Juablex, the ooze god.
Yeah.
And if that had happened, like, y'all would have had to run because there is no beating that. But these guys were like CR 1/3 each. So if you had decided that you wanted to fight on behalf of either one of these tribes, it would not have been a difficult fight. It would have been trivial, and that would have been a different story altogether, right?
Yeah.
And then
Yeah, like we gave some advice, we left. They gave some of us some like trinket or something to eat while we were in the room, and it like temporarily buffed our intelligence.
yeah, there was like a fruit that they gave you that if you ate some of it, then you got a bonus to your intelligence until you took a long rest, I believe.
Yeah. Which was nice. For like 5 hours, Charlotte had an intelligence of 22, which was really nice.
And again, I love the flavor, so to speak, of this room. Like it's there. It has a very important purpose, right? It feeds most of the hut, but also it's run by these tiny little veggie pygmies that, especially King Beard, believe themselves to be the rulers of this place, right? They believe that this space is theirs and their world. And sure, they know about the grandmother, but like, they really truly believe this is theirs. And again, that gets to that sort of insidious idea of Baba Yaga making people think they're doing something for them when really they're serving her ends. And I believe after this, you went to the other side of the room and made your way to the museum, yes?
Yeah, we fell through a panel in the ceiling.
Man, this place is so weird. Lots of Alice in Wonderland vibes here too, right?
Yeah.
Now, the museum, I imagine that we're all going to want to talk about a little bit, because the museum was one of my favorite places as well.
Yeah, I liked the museum a lot.
So you came out of a tree.
No, we fell out of the ceiling.
You fell out of the ceiling. That's right. That's right. The fungal gardens is in the middle of the ceiling. And why don't you all, I've been talking a lot. Why don't you all remind me a little bit about what the museum was like and your reaction to it?
True seeing is hacks.
That's true.
Although it did almost fuck you over in the second room when you looked
Yeah.
too hard at nothing.
Yep. Little too much.
Sometimes seeing the true nature of some experiments that are being done by Baba or other high mages carries the kind of like Lovecraftian risk of seeing too much.
Yeah.
Yeah, the curator was cool. He came in, he looked like this huge pit fiend and then shrunk down to a, human-esque, like normal museum curator that you could see in modern day.
I'm just saying, we could have taken it.
He had a clipboard.
I mean, maybe you could have taken him. The curator is a basically on the lam from pit fiends are devils, right?
Yes.
Okay, he's kind of on the lam from the hells. Like he is politically unpopular in the hells for reasons that don't get gone into. So he's here now, and he's one of the few people who is very willingly working alongside Baba Yaga, enjoys his job, enjoys what he does, and can leave anytime he wants, at least as far as he knows.
I think I'm remembering a little sliver of lore from somewhere. I think he's like an agent of Mephistopheles, who's like the big archdevil that got overthrown.
Yeah, probably,
so
and that,
like-
that would make
and
him,
like, and so he was like this top lieutenant and got out of position, and so like the rest of Asmodeus wants him dead because he's like the last vestige of a defunct ruler.
And that could have been a fight. I know that some of you were thinking, let's go back in there and fuck that guy up.
All I'm saying is it's a good thing we didn't have the sword with us at this moment. Fiend Claw.
Yes.
We had not gotten Fiend Claw yet, and I think that helped the museum be as smooth as it was.
The other thing that I love about the museum is that it has artifacts from a bunch of different continuities, timelines, universes. There's some sci-fi shit in here that you didn't actually get to see because you kind of figured out where you were going and went there. I think the most disturbing thing is the skull in the upper left, because it's the skull of like an archdemon. And
his name was Jovoth?
And you can't have a skull of a demon because demons discorporate when they die, right?
Except in one place.
Except
Unless
in one
you
place.
kill them on their home plane.
So you all kind of came to the conclusion that the demon itself was probably alive minus a skull somewhere, just so that Baba Yaga could display this thing.
And it's probably like there's probably some demon or devil with this giant metal like helmet that keeps his head more or less intact.
Or he's just chilling in like an invertebrate form right now. Giant slug. Still striking terror into people's hearts.
And I believe,
or it had more than one skull.
And I believe that the curator and Maven hit it off specifically. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, they did. They really did.
I ship it.
You know, it was. I think that like because he was so nice.
Yeah.
You know, and that was appealing to her, and like he obviously was enjoying like talking about his stuff and like everything like so that's an interesting thing to think about is because I always do find it interesting when you get to meet characters that maybe technically are in an evil situation but they themselves just seem not that evil.
I mean, to be clear, pit fiend.
Yes, I'm aware that he is a pit fiend. But what I'm saying is that he like did not seem that evil to Maven.
Yeah,
Well,
in the
that's the-
context where we met him, he was not torturing souls.
Yeah.
He's not
Like-
Also, like also Faerun is weird because making hell an objective truth that is measurable and observable, it makes a lot of really weird implications about the nature of the setting. And the moment you start digging into it, weird stuff comes up.
It does get a little bit strange.
One of which is that can a devil ever choose to not be evil? Because the answer is yes, then what does he become? And if the answer is no, is it just a landslide at that point? Just a particularly complicated storm.
So I do have to wonder, we arrived in the main room and then we went to the skull and the box of nothing. What were the other rooms?
So
yeah, I'm very curious.
The
about
box
that.
of nothing was really cool because having to describe that was so weird. And that was part of the thing. I'm going to give you the, where is it? Curator.
This is where we're going to, it's the random roll of either, woof, glad we avoided that, and oh, we missed that.
Ah, yes. A metal box filled with crackling black and white lightning around it. A large lever. When it's on, yeah. So it's a box of nothing. Basically, like someone from the negative material plane was trying to learn more about the nature of nothingness and accidentally tapped into some sort of demiplane where nothingness is not an absence of things, where nothingness is actually a thing unto itself. And
You know, like you do.
when the box fills with nothingness, everything that is inside the box is gone. So other rooms, the north room that has that green weirdness up there, it's described as, the curator does not know where Baba Yaga got it from, but he calls it a transmatter sequencer. But it doesn't seem to have any power, so it doesn't really do anything at the moment. That's definitely something from like a futuristic sci-fi sort of game.
It's a teleport pad.
On the south, there is a single piece, which is a large brown leather book bound in heavy chains. The book contains a single eye, and the book's title is The Chained Eye. And if you had gone down there, you would have noticed that the book, like, is watching you. It's chained up. It's very Necronomicon-esque, right? It's looking at you. Its eyes going around.
It's looking at me, Ray.
And then over to the east. Where is it?
Like, I mean, maybe Charlotte went back in the time she has time to kill and got a tour of the whole place.
There is at the north of that is a pale statue depicting an achingly beautiful fairy woman, constructed of moonstone, which can only be found on the plane of fairy. And then the south is 3 coffins in the ground. Essentially, she's keeping vampires there as a museum exhibit in their coffins.
Like you do. Like she does.
The curator explains that they contain the physical remains of 3 powerful vampire lords known as the Frères de Sang from the material plane realm called France.
The brothers of blood.
Yeah. So they mix in some real world stuff and some sci-fi stuff and some high fantasy stuff, and this room really gives you the idea that Baba Yaga is truly a collector of all things, right? She doesn't just want immortality. She doesn't just want magic. She wants to collect everything. And you found out that you needed some grave dirt. Yeah, the tank I came up with on my own. Originally, can I move it? No. Originally, there was something else there. I don't remember what was there. I put the tank there because I liked the idea of a Russian panzer, essentially, or a Russian, what did I call it? There was a name for it. Yeah, the Panzer Kampfwagen. So not a Russian tank, a German tank from World War II.
If Baba Yaga wasn't problematic enough, she also collects Nazi paraphernalia.
But I mean, of course she would.
Of course she would.
Yeah, but that makes sense, though.
Yeah.
It's entirely a character for her.
And to be
Yes,
clear,
yeah.
this museum represents a very, very, very small percentage of what she has, right? I think the curator mentioned that this is a part of a revolving collection.
Yeah.
The curator also was one of the first people we met, aside from Vladimir, who knew about the rest of the hut and could tell us a bit more. He told us about the orchard. He told us about Chef Pepperhop.
Yes, which was a lot of fun. We'll
So
get to
he
him.
was one of those people in the hut who's not just locked into their room and only really cares about their room. Like, he had a working knowledge of the hut.
Any other comments or memories about the museum before we move on? Pretty okay?
Yeah, that was fine.
Good, yeah.
I mean, we did ask him about grave dirt, which is what led us to going through the tree to the mausoleum.
Right. One of your scavenger hunt items that you needed on the note that you got was grave dirt. And he was like, oh, yeah, no, me and this guy, we talk all the time because he's just through that tree. Right? And
Never mind that there are 3 graves in his museum right now.
That's true, or at least 3 coffins.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't think there's any dirt around.
And
I mean, if there's trees and we have shovels, we could have made something a grave.
And the next room is possibly the most heartbreaking room in this hut. I have to say, spent a lot of time practicing for this one. Because I read it in the module, and I thought I need to make sure that this goes off really well.
We almost got through it without triggering it. We almost did.
Especially because when the combat began, I was just thinking, oh no, he doesn't have a chance.
No. So let's talk about it a bit, because I'm sure folks that are watching didn't necessarily see everything. So you come into the Graveyard of Kings, and the purpose of the graveyard I think you found out before you came here through the curator, is that Baba Yaga, in her infinite depravity, thought that perhaps there was some magical reason why monarchs are monarchs, right? The divine right of kings and all of that. So she has a room that is just plain full of royal corpses that she keeps in there in order to see, just as an experiment, maybe some magic will leach out that she can use to increase her own power, her own renown.
So yeah, we were not warned about that in advance. The curator did not mention
No?
that.
Okay, fair enough. So she's got this graveyard where she keeps these kings, and so far she has not gotten any sort of magical ability from them. Instead, all she got was a bunch of undead, because when you've got a whole bunch of extremely powerful people in a small place with a lot of magic around, that's the thing that tends to happen. So she had this guardian, who was a storm giant skeleton. Yeah?
Yeah. Lord Denbar.
Lord. Now, I don't remember the actual name from the thing. I changed it a little bit. I'm pretty sure it's Deadbos, Deedbos in the book, but I didn't remember that, so I said Denbar instead, and it's fine.
Denbar.
So you came in,
Maybe he misremembers it just a little bit more every time he comes back.
and you heard this fight going on outside. And this poor skeleton had been fighting this regenerating vampire for God knows how long, right? You came in, you managed to deal with it, and like Denbar was such a kind, affable person, loved making puns about bones. Like, wow, that really got under my skin. Not that I have any skin to begin with. And like, very Brooke from One Piece. In fact, as I've been watching One Piece, I wish I had done more. I wish I had done more of the puns. Like, I wish he had been like, you're a sight for sore eyes. Not that I have any eyes to see with. Would have been funny.
But like, he was really nice. Charlotte was like collecting the grave dirt. We were almost out the door, and because he was so nice, Calder wanted to be polite to him.
Oh,
And set something off.
Jeff, why don't you remind me what it was? Because I know, but why don't you remind the audience of what you did to remind
What did
Denbar
you
of what he
do?
was?
I think I told him what I remembered of that name, of who he was.
Yeah, you had because you had True Sight up at this point, right?
Yeah. I had decided.
You saw that he'd had like a crown around his head.
Yeah.
And I believe you were trying out your new clothes beam spell. You
Right,
wanted
right.
wanted
That's
him
right.
to look the part, right? Because he was
Yep.
dressed in rags, and you said, I want this obvious king to be dressed like a king. Like, he deserves it. He deserves it. He's a nice guy. He doesn't need to be sitting around here in rags. And he was like, oh, wow, this is really nice. Like, this is really good. And you said something like, I wanted you to dress as befits a king. And that was the moment.
Mhm.
Or like Your Majesty or something. Yeah.
And
Yep.
the moment he was reminded that he was a king, he was like, wait, I'm a what? Like, he didn't remember what happened outside the hut before that. He didn't remember anything of his life. And the moment he was reminded, like, he realized that he was a part of this experiment too, right? He is a dead monarch in the graveyard of kings. He is being sapped for his magical energy as well. And he went absolutely berserk as a magical failsafe, right?
But not as berserk as Maven.
Yeah,
No, not as berserk as Maven.
It turns out when you have a barbarian who uses a bludgeoning weapon and you put them against an enemy that is vulnerable to
Bones.
bludgeoning damage.
That is bones.
And that's the thing I loved about this, because the combat was not difficult, but it was heartbreaking, right? You didn't want to be in this fight. You did not want to have to take this guy down, but it was easy. It was simple, right?
It was so easy. Charlotte left in the middle of it. And she was like, you guys got this, bye.
Well, I mean, the graveyard itself kind of came to life as well. We had this shambling graveyard, which is an enemy that was made up for this module. So there were a couple of like shambling mounds made out of grave dirt that came and attacked you as well. But yeah, this is not the kind of fight that has the exciting battle music behind it, right? This is the kind of fight that has the low, mournful, like dirge behind it as you are putting this poor creature out of his misery only to realize that you didn't put him out of anything.
Oh yeah, because Dell was the last person in the room when he started to reform and went, "Oh hello, who are you?" Like was back to the really nice, like affable Lord Denbar.
Yeah, this was the first moment. Like, you've seen bits and pieces of it, but this is the first moment when you saw Baba Yaga's cruelty like on full display. It's clear that she does not care about anyone or anything other than herself, and she will use anyone in any capacity to achieve even the most nebulous of goals, right? This room did not have any real purpose. It was just an experiment. This is like Vault Tech shit.
Rude.
I just want to see what happens. It's a social experiment.
Yeah. Man, whew. So, you went back at this point,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, so we went back through the museum, up through the garden again, and then we camped for the night in the Rainbow Room.
Right. So you went back to the Rainbow Room, you camped, and then I believe you went back to the entryway and utilized the ceiling to get into the kitchen. Yeah?
Holius elongatus. is how you
Holius
activate the walking
elongatus.
stick.
Yes.
I remember.
Let me find the kitchen.
Oh yeah, with another
Uh,
great character.
Now, here's the fun thing. This is one of the small minor mistakes in this module, and if you're watching and you want to run this, I actually had to put an entrance here that came from the entry hall. So, though the entry hall said there was a trap door on the ceiling that leads to the kitchen itself did not say anything about having a door back to the entry hall. So I created a little cellar door that you opened up, and that was part of it. But again, anyone who's running this module, just be aware that the book itself does not have a door in the kitchen for this. Chef Pepperhop, who's a red cap, right? One of the nastiest and most evil of fairies. I was trying to go for, with my performance, a combination of Londo Mollari from Babylon 5 and Gordon Ramsay. I was kind of
Definitely more Gordon than Londo.
Yeah. The Londo was just the voice. He was, you have to do the thing. You have to go and get the pudding. Like, trying to get the voice going. But, the actions were very Gordon Ramsay. And he puts his cruelty on display very quickly as you see some of the ogres. And by the way, I think this is the second time you interacted with the Chickenfoot ogres?
No, they had been referenced in the garden, but we didn't actually see any there.
Right.
This is the first time we saw them.
And the Chickenfoot ogres, I would love to... Yes, Psychanthrope, I gotta say, Londo is a great voice, which is why I chose him. And just like the actual actor that played Londo, to get into the character, all I had to say was, Mr. Garibaldi! And moved on from there. So, these ogres... We didn't really dive deep into where these ogres come from. But it turns out, and you would have found this out if you had gone like into their lodgings, because they have like this infinite
Wait, we did see ogres before us. They were in the museum when
they were
we came
talking.
back.
Yeah, when you came back, they were chatting, and I believe they had a quick chat with you all as well, right? Like, they seem pretty affable. They're like union workers that are just, paying their dues.
Overworked, underpaid.
And the thing about these... So she, Baba Yaga goes out and looks for these ogres, and she brings them into the hut, and they are there voluntarily. They get a stipend of 10 silver pieces per week. They don't age while they're in the hut. And when they voluntarily, at any time, decide that their term of service is over, they find themselves more or less back where they started, with a big pouch full of silver and no memory of what happened in the hut. So these ogres are technically here voluntarily, and they're being paid for their labor, but once they decide to leave, all of their memories of their time there are wiped, essentially. Mm-hmm. And they've got these chicken legs to mark them as property of Baba Yaga while they're there.
No, that is a neat detail.
right? Like the chicken legs, like the hut has chicken legs.
Then what about the ones that Pepperhop talked about putting in the soup?
The danger comes with the territory, it turns out. Being an ogre guard is not the kind of thing that grants one a long life expectancy regardless of where you're at.
I mean, like we wouldn't think twice if we encountered this in a totally normal dungeon. So
Yeah, and I think I at least implied, if not straight out stated, that like some of them were missing fingers because Pepperhop is very quick with that little fucking sharp knife he's got. And Pepperhop was able to jump around, right? Because Pepperhop, I thought it was nice.
Yeah. And he loved Maven.
And he loved Maven.
People in the hut kept loving Maven.
You gotta talk
Yeah.
shop with fellow chefs.
Yes.
And he offered to exchange some recipes. No, that was a little bit later. But he also offered you some of the stew that he was making, which is probably not made of humanoid meat, but not necessarily not.
No, he said
mean,
there were wergar in it.
He,
Right,
he
that's
actually like tried to like change what he was saying halfway through because he realized that like who he was talking to probably like
That's
it was
right.
hilarious. Like
He-
he's like
Yeah, he was gonna say
you made a
wergar
red cap
and
give a
changed-
shit about offending you.
and changed it to
I mean
wergar, which
that is
still
the
a
power of Maven. That is the power of
And
Maven.
to be-
Red Cap.
To be clear, the fact that he particularly likes dwarf meat, I believe, comes from the module itself. But and yes, I did definitely like set up that line of, oh yeah, we have all kinds of meat. I really enjoy deer. I like boar. I like dwargar. Oh man, that was good times. And he was berating his ogres for not bringing a black pudding from the incredibly fun named intestinal tunnel.
I don't like that. Thank you.
Well, yeah, and we didn't even come here looking for the black pudding. We came here because the curator said that Pepperhop would know where the orchard is. 'Cause
Yes.
we were still looking for the apple.
Yes.
So, like, the fact that we came here and he's like, yeah, I can tell you where the orchard is, but I need some black pudding. And we're like, oh, well, okay.
And then to the north, which is a place that I don't think you went to.
Nope.
To the north, there's a meat locker. So it's like a place of magical cold. If you had gone in there, you would have started taking cold damage. And there was a door up there, and the door kind of freezes shut. You didn't go up there, and that's fine. The fight with the pudding wasn't really a fight.
Nope.
It was a let me see what spell I have for this. Aha.
Something I love about spellcasters is every once in a while they just have the I fix this puzzle or I solve this puzzle spell.
And it turns out black puddings have no real answer to telekinesis.
No.
That's fair.
No, you captured it like a
Why would
Pokemon.
they?
I captured it like a Pokemon and moved on with my day.
Yeah, well, you were doing that. Pepperhop
No,
was trying
no.
to sweet talk.
The
What?
door closed. Why did the door
Yeah.
close? I forget. You had to
Because
no,
Jeff
because otherwise-
specifically said Calder closed the door behind him.
Yeah.
Because I
That's
don't want
exactly
black
what
pudding.
happened.
I didn't want black puddings escaping. That felt prudent.
that is a prudent step except for the fact that the thing only opened from one side.
True.
So you had to kick the door and get Maven to come open it for you.
Yeah.
It was that, or because Plan B was disintegrate the door.
While you
yeah.
were doing that, Pepperhop lied to Dell and Charlotte to get them to maybe go get eaten by Volcanus in the armory.
Look, lied is such a strong word. He said,
He
Misled us
lied.
directly.
He said Volcanus owed him a favor. Present tense. And that was a lie.
and he was like, I just want to stay here and talk to your chef for a while. Why don't you go and talk to Volcanus in the armory? Maybe he'll let you have. In fact, if you give him, I think he gave you like a bent copper coin or some shit.
Which Charlotte still has.
Which-
And I think, like, at this point, it should be a token of a phase lie.
Hmm.
Might be a spell ingredient later.
So Pepperhop said, I want to exchange recipes with your chef because the chef had made a blood pudding, right? Maven, you had made like a regular blood pudding in the entryway.
Maven didn't know what a blood pudding was. Also, I didn't know what a blood pudding was, so that worked out for both of us. But yeah, Maven didn't know what
a black pudding, not a blood pudding, a black pudding.
A black pudding, yeah. But like black pudding is also, you know, a kind of cuisine. It's a delicious,
Apparently it's a breakfast food in Britain. I don't know. The English are weird.
But like, yeah, I'm just in here going, okay, like they need this, so cool, we'll do this. And so she had made that. So I just
So you gave him a regular black pudding and he was like, this is delicious. I really want to like talk shop with you. Maybe I can give you some of my maybe humanoid meat recipes in exchange for some of your, very down home underground dwarven cooking recipes. Like, this is Gordon Ramsay going from you fucking donkey to a fellow professional, right?
Yeah.
And like no chef is so proud that they won't exchange recipes with someone else that they see as their equal.
So, and that gave us like a little bit of a chance to like do some stuff. Although that there was definitely, this is around the point that she's starting to get a clue.
Yeah, I was about to say, because Maven comes into this. Maven is a high-level barbarian, but she's been a homebody for the last several centuries. And
decades.
So she's coming in here, she's got these naive ideas, and she's just beginning to get a little bit of the, wait, something's not right here. Maven's story in this entire thing was one of my favorite things. I'm going to say this a lot, but one of my favorite things about this entire module was Maven's sort of awakening from her idea of what the world is like to what the world is actually like.
Yeah.
This is also the first room we went into after Maven had finally been clued into the fact that Charlotte is blind.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Never not hilarious. Absolutely perfect.
As a side note, and this is going to be a short side note, the whole disabled characters in D&D discourse is going on Twitter again. And every time it happens, I just have to point to Charlotte and be like, I have a player who plays a blind character who made it very clear that she does not want her character's blindness magically cured or removed or anything like that, which is a nerf, right? It means that anything that has line of sight, unless you come up with some way around it, is a spell that you just can't cast. And it's been so good.
Yeah, I had the idea to do Charlotte for a while as like a build challenge, but then like getting to do first the Forge and then this one. I don't know. I like how varied you can do your builds in 5e, and that kind of enabled me to actually make Charlotte a playable character. And, I've worked with you, DM, a bit about finagling some spells that, like, have different wording depending on what source you're using, but it's...
Yeah, you ended up picking up Summon Draconic Spirit, and, like, instead of to a place you can see, it could be a place within 5 feet of you or whatever, like...
Yeah.
And researching spells is part of the game, right? Being able to modify spells like Calder with his fucking acid ball, like, these things do happen, right? And I like the fact that you really stick to your guns and want to make sure that this is the character you're playing and you're going to play her this way. And I love that.
Yeah. And it was really fun too for her and Dell to go into the armory, and I think it just happened that we're the two characters in the party that can speak Primordial, who happen to go and talk to the Primordial.
Speaking of the armory, while Maven
was getting locked in a pantry.
While Maven was talking shop, and I believe Calder, you stayed back for some reason as well.
I believe I was locked in the pantry at the time.
The first thing I have to
yourself
check.
in a
Yes.
pantry.
Okay. So you made your way into the armory, right? This is where all the weapons are, where all the armor is, and where a CR-30 goddamn Volcano Titan sort of oversees everything. Yeah? And you presented your chip and said, hey, the chef over there said you owed him a favor.
And he wanted to cash it in, and Volcanus was like, fuck that guy.
He was having none of it. Volcanus was having none of it. And this is where you met Fiend Claw. The Great. The Slicer of Fiends. And the item, is part of the module. Like, that is in there. Admittedly, the voice and the personality, that was all me. I enjoy doing the bad catchphrases every time he's drawn, that sort of thing. But yeah, a weapon that is specifically keyed to fight against fiends. Going into a party with a wizard who's familiar is a fiend.
I am so looking forward to the discussion around when Fiendclaw learns who my parents are.
All right.
Because Dell's going to have to, we'll mention it eventually.
Maybe not.
Maybe. Like,
I was going to say, this could be like 10 years from now, but...
Well, because Calder himself doesn't ping as a fiend, because he's not.
No.
True. But my parents is what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
You know how often I mention my actual parents in real life?
I was gonna say, Dell's been living in another, like, reality dimension for, like, decades. I don't know if it's gonna come up.
If it comes up, it'll come up. But if it doesn't come up, it won't come up.
No. So this was a pretty short scene. There was a little bit of negotiation. I believe that Dell agreed to get a cask of fire wine from the cellars of this place to bring back to Volcanus because he has a taste for it, and the elemental in charge of the cellars isn't a big fan of his. So it's been a while since he's got to taste this fire wine or fire brandy or whatever it is I said it was.
Fire wine, yeah. It does just kind of beg the question of, how did Baba get a Titan in here? And apparently he can't leave?
He is absolutely bound to the area.
Like, summoning an elemental and binding them to work is, like, pretty common in D&D, but this is a high-level elemental.
Let's see. Volcanus. Yeah, it doesn't say. Also, there was a door inside Volcanus's, like, little area. If you had decided to go down that way, you didn't, and that's fine. But there was, like, Volcanus himself was standing on top of a trapdoor that you could have gone down.
What did that lead to?
That would have led to... Hold on.
And I have a question as well.
Please do.
What other weapons were in this place?
Oh,
Was it just Fiend?
so according to the module, each of the 4 different quadrants had 4 different kinds of things. So in the upper left, you can see all that, you can see little, like, armor statues.
Armor.
So there was armor up there. There was one for ranged weapons. There was one for 2-handed weapons. And there was one for 1-handed weapons, essentially. So armor and shields, like, and then Fiend Claw, of course, was in the 1-handed weapon area. The magma pool holds an imprisoned primal titan known as Volcanus. Use the statistics for Megara the Dawn Titan, so that tells you where that is.
Oh.
All right.
Primal titans are primordial elemental creatures from the inner planes who wield incredible power, but they are little more than simple brutes in most regards. Baba Yaga captured Volcanus and bound it to the magma armory, and the powerful character takes its charge seriously. It doesn't speak. I mean, it does. But if anyone not bound to the dancing hut touches any weapons or armor, he's going to go and fight you. So I don't remember if I actually had him say anything.
We talked it because both Charlotte and Dell speak primordial. We were able to, like, make hissing, gurgling noises at him, and he's like, I'll let that one go if you bring me some fire wine.
Yeah. Yeah.
Also, maybe just take him for a walkabout. He's been talking a lot lately.
Constantly,
Shut up, oh my
without
God.
end. Yeah. And then we went back to the kitchen.
Yep.
Right? You brought Fiend Claw. And you went back to the kitchen. Did you actually accuse Pepper Hop of lying to you?
No, we did not bring it up to his face.
So if I remember, when I made this, the idea in his mind, because I mean fucking chaotic evil, right? But
Right.
in his mind it was, you walk in there and you'll walk out with a piece of equipment. And if you had confronted him on that, he would have been like, "Did you present the coin? Yes. Did you walk out with a piece of equipment? Yes. What's your problem?" Now, obviously, it's still a lie, right? Chaotic evil. But that would have been his defense if you had called him on it. He would have been like, "Did you get your equipment or what? Like, I told you he would give you a thing. He would let you walk out with a thing. You walked out with a thing. What the fuck's your problem?" And that would have been a fun conversation to have.
Charlotte's still kind of pissed at him about that, and if they manage to pull off the plan in the end and she actually becomes the new controller of the hut, maybe Pepper Hop should watch out.
We'll see.
Oh,
We'll see if that happens. So you went back to the kitchen. Do you remember what came next?
Yes, Pepper Hop, in exchange for Calder getting him the black pudding and Maven exchanging recipes, told us how to get to the orchard.
Right.
He
And
told us
it was
the south doors lead to the trophy hall, use the fireplace to get to the menagerie, one of those doors leads to the library, and from there you can get to the orchard.
And I believe the trophy hall was the next new room that you found yourselves in, right? That was you had to go back to the entry hall with the prismatic statues.
No. The trophy hall was from the south door of the kitchen.
Gotcha. Okay, so you went from the kitchen to see. Even I have been studying this module for months now, and I still have no idea sometimes.
Yeah, no. The rainbow room has another way to get into the armory, but that's not where we were going.
The trophy hall. So outside of the Cemetery of Kings, the trophy hall was another room that I wanted to get perfect. I wanted to really send a message to all of you with this room. So a quick description of the trophy hall. There were 2 levels to it, right? The bottom level was like a hunter's lodge with the heads of various beasts and creatures, dragons and deer and other things mounted on the walls. Including a massive head of a green dragon, which I believe you learned about while you were in this room, right? And the upper level contained a number of statues, of frighteningly realistic statues of kings and paladins and knights that
One assassin,
you
thief.
eventually learned. Well, let's start with, you came down and you met with Leslinée, the Eladrin hunter, and her cohort.
Group of them.
Yes?
Yep, and their seemingly very nervous halfling guest.
So they were very affable. Yes, they offered you a place to sit, they offered you drinks, they offered you conversation. They talked a little bit about how they were Baba Yaga's hunters. So a lot of these trophies came from their labors. And also, they were the ones who exacted vengeance upon anybody who dared to attack Baba Yaga herself. Thus, the second level of this room, all of these, you found out, people, not statues, were actually like humans and dwarves and others who were frozen in time, potentially conscious, looking at this clock in the center of the room, which ticked away the years instead of minutes or hours. And essentially, they had to stare at this clock that showed them exactly how many centuries, millennia they've been trapped here. as they're watching.
And one of them was an old teammate of Dell's.
And one of them was an old teammate of Dell's who wielded a spiked chain, if I recall. I wanted to make reference to the meme spike chain build from 3.5, which I really enjoyed.
Yes. Oh, that build.
This is also where, like, Lesson A in the story of talking about taking down the Green Dragon also mentioned the Nexus of the Hut.
Yeah, let that
like
slip.
That Baba Yaga herself had come in to finish the job to stop the Green Dragon from getting to it.
And started a brain worm.
If a dragon can do it, why not a wizard?
And I feel like
Hubris.
Dell, I seem to recall you said, like, oh yeah, this was a guy who went off in search of his daughter at one point, which makes sense. This is Baba Yaga's hut, right?
Yeah.
And I seem to remember him being very, if not blasé, more like annoyed with this guy.
Yeah.
He was like, wow, that's the spike chain guy, huh? Well, I guess this is where he ended up. Okay, moving on.
It happens, my guy.
It shows how Dell is very cool, very calm, very collected, and also very jaded. Yeah. Like, you can't be an interdimensional parole officer, essentially, without being a little bit jaded.
Yeah, just a little bit jaded though, not like super jaded. But it's also Dell is a lawful neutral character.
Yeah.
Like, the thing that matters is have you did the law good? Yeah, you didn't do the law good though.
Well, this was also kind of another step towards what is Baba Yaga doing? Because, they were talking about how the typical way things run is that Baba lands the hut and sends her hunters out for whatever she's trying to collect or hunt or deal with wherever she has landed the hut. But she had landed the hut here like a day or two ago, and she hadn't sent the hunters out yet.
And they were all going stir crazy, right? They were playing dragon chess, they were reading. One of them was invisible and got sat on.
So this was another clue towards the, like, maybe Baba doesn't have a very solid plan for what she's doing here, or is handling it herself.
Yeah. Now, remind me, is this the spot where Maven realized the statues weren't statues? Like, did that happen here?
We were having that conversation, yeah.
And this is like Maven was already getting little bits and pieces of things aren't the way they appear to be, right? But this, I believe, especially since there is a dwarven king among the statues.
That's where it got real.
Baby's first crisis of conscience.
And suddenly Maven is like
cinematic moment where it's zooming in on her while also the camera's pulling back and it's doing that weird
the dolly zoom.
Yes.
Yeah. This was an eye opener for a lot of you, and there was a halfling, and this was an insert that I put in. Gale, you were a part of my very, very fun Storm King's Thunder game, and Felgalos, the Flying Misfortune, was an NPC in that game, and I knew I had to bring him back because I love that character, and I love the idea that he was just flying around and just by chance happened to crash land into the hut, and now he's like, oh, this place is kind of neat, and now I can't get out because I don't know any way to get out of here. And now these Eladrin are here that helped kill this ancient green dragon that's way more powerful than I am. And if they find out what I am so fucked. Right? So they were having this very affable conversation that had this sort of subtext to it. And
Calder's the one with, again, the true sight that was like, oh, that's a dragon. Hey, buddy, want to come with us?
Yes, please. Get me away from these things.
because I remember you also was like, you have
Hey, True Sight, who the fuck are these people?
it was like because each of these was like a session apart, so you had a full like bank of time to forget I had True Sight.
And I did. And I told you in the game, like, you got to remind me or else I will forget.
Yep. I like
Hey,
how the clock
no
was
problem.
just a clock.
Yeah, I mean, like, it's a... Let me see. Hold on.
It's a fuck you clock, but it's
Let
just
me pull
a
up
clock.
the description. So the trophies, the floor sigil. Baba Yaga doesn't merely kill those who come hunting her specifically. She keeps them in suspended animation for a period of time based on their skill level and how Baba Yaga thinks they'll adjust afterwards. The sigil on the floor mimics a clock face, but it marks the passage of time in the span of years and decades, so its movements are almost imperceptible. The sigil radiates strong transmutation magic, blah blah blah. Baba Yaga has the power to release bound creatures early, though she does not. Like, she really doesn't. So like, yeah, there's this... She is literally punishing them by forcing them to watch the passage of decades from their stasis. It is one of the most inhumane and horrifying things I've ever seen in any Dungeons and Dragons module, and Maven's response to it was perfect. Like, this was the spot where she broke.
I find it quite horrifying. I don't like it.
Yeah.
You know, that's... Whew.
Anything else about this particular room that we wanted to talk about before we move on to, I believe, the menagerie?
Yep, we went through the lower right fireplace after pulling the poker.
Lower left, I believe. At least that's the one that's marked on my map. It doesn't matter. So, the menagerie, which I personally... So, the menagerie was filled with creatures that did not exist in any mechanical sense in the game, right? So, here's the menagerie, and I'm actually going to go ahead and add all of the exhibits to the tracker so that you can actually see them. There they are. And I decided that I wanted to... Oh, wow. Some of the images I apparently got rid of. Anyway, I wanted to show off some stuff, right? I wanted to pull a bunch of different creatures from a bunch of different planes. I pulled a couple from Eberron. I pulled a fucking gelatinous cube. If you look in the very, very lower right, you'll see a Machamp.
Mm-hmm.
Which I called Machamp because I don't want to get sued by Nintendo. So it was
boy,
like a...
are they so happy lately.
Yeah, for sure.
So you like told us about this room in advance. You asked like what kind of animals are our favorites. Like I knew you were building up this room for a while, but unfortunately when we got here in game is when like Maven was having her breakdown and Dell was like, let's get going, and Charlotte was like, I can't see these cages, and Calder's like, let's get going. And so like we didn't even look at any of the displays when we came through here.
Which I'm also upset at, even though I'm very much the gung-ho, let's get out of here, let's fulfill the mission.
Like
Because a couple of these things I legitimately love.
Yeah, like in character, our characters were like, fuck this hut, we've reached our point of just, we have to get through this. And
Yeah.
just as we were getting to the room where you're like, I put so many cool things in there for you guys to stop and look at.
And so a couple of things. First off, let me go through the 12 creatures that I brought to the table. And there was a reality in which some of them might have gotten free and started a fight. This is another place where there could have been a big combat. The one, I'm going to go, the 6 on the top, we have a Chul, which I don't remember where that's from.
I think it's a D&D thing.
We have a Brekkekex, which is basically a small creature that uses another creature as a mech, essentially.
That feels like video game.
We've got a Retriever, which is a spider construct. I wish I had put down where all these came from.
This is from a D&D 3rd ed expansion.
A Dragon Turtle, which is one of my
Love those.
favorites from second edition.
And they've gotten significantly bigger since then.
Significantly.
A Zorn, which I
I
know
love the Zorn.
happens to be one of Jeff's favorites, which is why I included it.
The favorite, saddest Earth elementals, because all they are is just really hungry and they want to go home.
This Death's Kiss, which is like a Uwu beholder. Right? Look at that eye. Look at that eye. It's like...
Is that the official description?
It's
or-
like, notice me, senpai. Look at it.
Test me, senpai.
And then on the south, I have something called the Lonely, which is a psychic leech that apparently like drains people around it. An arc light phoenix
From fucking Ravnica.
from Ravnica. A gelatinous cube, which is hilarious because like it's in a cube shaped like terrarium where they're being held in stasis, much like the folks in the trophy room. And you can't tell that a gelatinous cube is a gelatinous cube. Look, we see them be green, but we only do that because it's a lot easier than putting a nothing in front of you, right? The whole point of
Right.
gelatinous cubes is that you can't see them until they've engulfed you.
Yeah.
We had a hook horror, which is an
Yeah,
Underdark
classic.
creature that I really enjoy, yeah. An attack mannequin. And then, of course, Machamp, which is a Machamp, which I statted all these out. I was ready for a fight in here if it happened. But the thing you learned is that A, the menagerie is actually run by a diplomatic contingent of mind flayers. And this contingent has a tentative alliance with Baba Yaga, where they are allowed to be here in the hut. They're allowed to explore and ask questions and maybe try to attack Baba Yaga at some point. But they are the wardens of the menagerie. At least they were.
Pepperhop told us to not mind the mind flayers.
I felt that was a particularly clever turn of phrase myself. But the mind flayers were sort of piled up in the corner, right? Under an invisibility
Yeah.
that I believe Calder was able to see through. Oh, Swoops was able to see through as well.
Yeah, Swoops found them and then called other people over like, I don't know what the fuck I'm looking at.
And this was
Like a
the
bunch of
first.
squid people.
This was the first idea that maybe Anton was in the hut, right?
Well, this was the M rolling like over a 30 on like an investigation or perception check and knowing for certain that it was Anton.
But then saying, nah,
Could literally be anybody.
anybody. Could have been anyone. Not going to give that bastard credit.
Could literally be absolutely anyone in the whole world. Anton is special.
I enjoy when one character gets a really high roll and then keeps what information they get from the other players. It does mean that you all have to remember what you know and what you don't know, but like I loved oh yeah, some of these have been kind of eaten and some of these have been kind of stabbed by a really big blade. Could have been anyone. Who knows?
Could have been anybody.
That's weird.
But now from here, the wine cellar is off to the west, which you didn't go to. You went to the library after this, yeah?
Yes.
Before we move on to the library, was there anything more about the menagerie that anyone wanted to talk about?
What was the condition where things get let out?
So in the module, if you are aggressive with the mind flayers, they could let things out. There was also a possibility of a random encounter happening in this room, and if any physical damage was done to the stasis terraria, then the things would have been let out. So like the mind flayers were gonna ask you lots of questions. They were gonna interrogate you. They were gonna ask you everything about the outside, everything about you, everything about everything. They would have been
Yeah, I found
really
that-
aggressive about it.
Hey, I found out why Anton killed them.
Exactly. Exactly. And if you were mean or aggressive back, they'd be like, "Oh, okay, boom, let go some creatures to try to take you down." Right? So I had
It
stats
didn't
for
get
all
that
of these,
far.
but it didn't go that way. And again, there could have been a random encounter here that could have let some of them loose as well. I was rolling for random encounters every time you entered a new room, but that did not happen. Instead, you went directly to the Curious Library.
Well, Maven went in first to check it out
That's right,
and,
Maven went
and
in
made
first.
a friend.
And
Yes.
so, another tragic character. Yes? You find your way to the library where these bands of wraiths are going back and forth and reshelving books, and you learned that there is no Dewey Decimal System here. There is no system of, like, organization. This room is a central reading area and 4 towers that go up farther than the eye can see. Right? And
Farther than a bat can fly.
farther than a bat can fly, because Swoops went up there and was like, "Nah, I'm bored now, going back." And the thing about this is the wraiths can get any book you ask for, so long as you know the title of the book. They'll be able to go and find it for you, no problem. But if you don't know the title of the book, you're kind of screwed. Now, these are
And
not.
we should have asked them for the D&D player's handbook.
God damn, why didn't I think of that?
That would have been so funny. These are not like magical tomes, right? These are not the powerful books. These are just, a lot of them just happen to be fucking Baba Yaga's vanity, right? Storybooks about Baba Yaga. But also books, as Cogsworth said, you know, books on every possible topic, more books than you could read in a lifetime. I'm making a Beauty and the Beast reference. So, in the reading room, there was this Arcanoloth, yeah, which is a type of Yugoloth, which is a type of fiend. It's kind of like a Rakshasa type, like fox creature.
No, we looked up him specifically. He is a jackal.
A jackal, that's right.
He's an Arcanoth.
Who had lost his memories. He didn't know who he was, where he came from, but he knew that he was in the center of the repository of the greatest repository of knowledge in the multiverse. So he felt like if he read enough books, eventually he would be able to figure out who he was. That was his whole deal.
Well, he told Maven and the rest of us that Baba Yaga had told him he's welcome to stay here and try to find his memories.
As long as he wants.
Yeah.
Absolutely. He can stay here as long as he wants. And he's the kind of nerd that, like, once he starts reading, like, especially, like, you're never going to get another chance, right? You're in a nigh infinite library. He wants to know all of the things. Arcanoloths are famous for wanting to know all of the things. So she probably took his memories and is probably keeping him there for some unknown reason. It doesn't say. Let's see. The grandmother of witches is fond of reminding travelers about the value contained in a book. Quote, "It can be the darkest secret of the worst god in the multiverse, or a collection of knock-knock jokes. All are important. All should be valued equally." That is Baba Yaga's feeling about her books. So at one point, my favorite part of this room was when he pulled out
knock jokes are much more important.
a Dr. Seuss book. And he was like, "Oh yeah, but he's German, so his name is Seuss," which is how it's actually pronounced. It's pronounced Seuss. All of you, it's not Dr. Seuss. You're saying it wrong. His name is Dr. Seuss. That's just, he's German. That's the way it's pronounced. And Maven was like, "I don't know what German or Seuss is."
Yes.
Not a clue.
That's nice, dear.
And yeah, he was very kind and very nice. And he was like, "Yeah, there's a secret door around here somewhere."
Well, because we asked, like, how do you get to the orchard from here? Because we'd been told that Baba Yaga, like, comes to the library, and how Pepperhop knew that the orchard was here was that she would eat fruit while she was reading.
Yeah.
But, like, Algoth didn't. It was like, the what?
I said-
I don't leave here.
I said oranges, didn't I? Didn't I say she ate oranges? I
Yes,
seem to
fruits,
remember
oranges
saying
while
that.
she reads.
I was making a Babylon 5 reference.
Yes.
Bruce
That's why it went over
Boxlander's
my head.
Bruce Boxlander's character, Captain Sheridan, was just obsessed with oranges for some reason in that show, to the point where in the actor commentary afterwards, Bruce was like, I don't know why my character was so obsessed with oranges, but here we are. So I was
Not
making that
because we
reference.
love them. Yep.
A little bit of Barbosa
played-
with the apples.
Yeah.
The character explains that he just like he at home he would start off every day with a fresh squeeze glass of orange juice and can't get that in space.
And then, so this was supposed to be a puzzle, but it's a puzzle that was instantly solved by True Sight.
Yeah.
Again, you know.
So there are 4 doors, right? North, south, east, and west, and then there is a hidden door. And the north, south, east, and west doors are randomized. So every time you went through one of them, I was going to roll a d4, and you were probably going to end up either in the alchemy laboratory, the menagerie, or back in the library. Because this area is so weird that you can't tell north from south. But when you have true seeing, fucking Calder could be like, oh yeah, that cupboard's a secret door, by the way.
Right there. Let's go.
Just so you know, it's right there. Let's go. So you did not spend a lot of time here, but it was another example of a fairly affable, fairly polite NPC that is also very tragic, probably because of Baba Yaga. Psychanthrope mentions potentially having Neil Gaiman novels in there that he didn't finish, and the answer is, can you think of someone that Baba Yaga would be obsessed with more than Neil Gaiman? Like, I kind of believe that she collects all of his books and all of his musings, all of his manuscripts.
I think I recall like there is a point where Baba Yaga is mentioned in the context of Sandman, and she does not like the Sandman.
No, she wouldn't, would she?
Nope.
And then from there, you went to the orchard. Yeah? So I'm going to go ahead and pull that up. And the orchard itself was another big combat encounter that you kind of sidestepped because of Ilya. Yeah? And Ilya...
Well, it was one of the only rooms that went instantly to combat when we got there.
Yeah. Yeah, because for me, it's all about the moles in Fallout that just pop up out of the ground and attack you. It was kind of them, right? And in fact, I believe I had the terror moles. I believe the picture that I made of them was, yes, the little moles mole rats from Fallout. And Del was a super badass very quickly, and then as you heard this small voice saying, "Stop! These are my friends. Please stop." Del was like, "Everyone stop," and that was his first real big flex of power, if I recall.
Yeah.
Like this was him stepping out from Del's kind of a background. He likes to stay back and watch. He is the watcher, right? That's his thing. And you met Ilya, one of Baba Yaga's other daughters, who she was disappointed in, turned into a hedgehog, and promptly forgot about. Yeah? So another piece of Baba Yaga's cruelty. As a side note, a character that you did not interact with because she was a random encounter is Elena the Mad. Elena is another one of her daughters who was seduced by a demon lord, killed, and is now an insane ghost, wandering the dancing hut. That would have been an interesting encounter if you had ever gotten together with her, but it just never came up.
Wouldn't have been the first insane ghost we came across.
Nope. Nope, but this time Kreetha isn't there to tank the possession.
Yeah.
I mean, we'd have a couple of nickels, which is not much, but it's weird that it's
But it's
happened
weird that it
twice.
happened twice. So Baba Yaga, of course, has a sweet tooth for fruits, like think Snow White, right? Especially apples. She grows her own variety. The black water in the river feeds the roots of the trees, increasing the potency of some while turning the others into poison. So if you had eaten any of these, there was,
Swoops
again...
did.
Oh,
Swoops
Swoops
did eat
did.
He got really tiny.
Yes, so some of the things that the apples could do to you. It could act as a potion of heroism. It could act as a potion of giant strength, fire giant specifically, so 25 strength. That would have been funny on Swoops.
Swoops would be hilarious.
It could act as a potion of mind reading or diminution. Diminution?
He went from a tiny to minuscule.
Yeah, so he basically
The
became a
size of a
little bee. You could take 10d6 necrotic damage.
Oh yeah, I meant to ask, when we first came into this room, you had everybody make a con save, and Charlotte and Swoops failed, but we never got to what the effect was.
So the Constitution save. One moment. That is the hunger thing. And Swoops ended up not having the problem with it. I thought Swoops was the only one that failed.
No, Charlotte did too, and we just never got to it.
Okay, so here's what it says in the module. The grass in the orchard is fed by the Black River running through the area, which has created an insidious infestation known as hungry grass. When a living creature first walks onto the grass, they have to succeed on a DC 18 Constitution throw or be infected with the crawling hunger disease. The disease takes 1d12 hours to gestate.
Ooh, so we're not there yet.
If left to gestate,
I really hate the word gestate also in
I like the
relationship with
phrase.
this.
I just like the phrase "crawling hunger disease."
yeah, if left to gestate, the crawling hunger takes over and the victim is consumed with a ravenous desire to eat worms and dirt. The desire is overpowering, inflicting a -1 penalty on attack rolls, saving throws, and ability checks. Each day, so this might still be a thing, the hunger grows worse, increasing the penalty by -1 until it reaches -5 by the end of the 5th day. After that, unless treated, the victim's organs erupt in a violent protest of disease, and the victim dies a horrible, violent death.
Yeah, we're like at hour 5 for Charlotte.
You need once it has fully gestated, you need a full-on greater restoration spell to deal with it.
Well,
Well,
wait, didn't
Say the word gestate one more time.
she got removed
Gestate.
first for the lycanthropy, but not.
Yes, that was a curse, not a disease, right? That's
Yeah,
a
no.
different thing.
It's still gestating.
I hate.
Y'all were like, it's cool. We cured her from being a werewolf. There's no other ticking time bomb in Charlotte. Don't worry about it.
So
Fine.
so Ilya,
It's perfectly fine. Like, what could be wrong?
so as a human, Ilya loved the orchard. And as someone who was bound to the hut, like Baba Yaga could find Ilya at any time. But she didn't care. She doesn't care. And so Ilya has been living in the orchard with these moles for God knows how long. And you had a bit of a chat with her. Yeah. And she asked you a question over and over again, which I believe you all misinterpreted initially. Yeah?
Probably, yeah.
Well,
She said, "Are you here to kill my mother?"
we gave a lot of different answers.
And you were like,
too.
"No, we're not going to kill your mother." And she said it. She asked it 2 or 3 times, like, "Are you here to kill my mother?"
And Charlotte gave a lot of qualifying answers, like not if she doesn't start shit first, and
Yeah.
my answer was no. We're not here to kill her. If it happens,
If it happens, then it happens.
but he told the truth.
Well, Well, and we did. I think at one point it might have been in the missing episode. We did ask, "Do you want us to?" And she got very quiet and didn't answer.
She did not answer. No. It's important to recognize Ilya is this incredibly, like, there's a good reason she's a hedgehog. She's this incredibly timid, like, scared creature who just doesn't want to be noticed by the bad person, right? She
Okay,
just
hold
doesn't
up.
want to be noticed.
Hold up. I've read Redwall.
I've
They are
played
not
Sonic.
timid.
Yes and no. Like they're not aggressive.
No, like
I mean, they're
in
not
Wild
aggressive.
hedgehog.
in the wild, hedgehog's basic defense is to curl up into a ball and wait until the danger goes away, right?
Say,
Like,
fuck off. Don't touch me. Fuck off.
Don't touch me.
and the thing is, Ilya is one of those characters who was like a toddler or a small child when Baba Yaga took her away. That's a thing that happens, right? Baba Yaga kidnaps children that she thinks have potential.
Unpleasant.
And if that potential ends up not working out, and I didn't go into that deeply because I know that, like, harm to children is kind of one of our yellow zones. But, like, yeah, she was taken away from her parents as a small child, raised by Baba Yaga, and then cast aside and ignored for God knows how long. Yeah.
Yeah. But we made friends with her. She rode around in Maven's little ladle. Yeah. Oh yeah, and during this fight, Fell came in, turned into Big Dragon, and then the fight was over. So he was just kind of hanging out in his dragon form, don't mind me.
Well, that happened. I have a couple of things about Ilya. So it says she was expressly forbidden from smelling the black roses in a hidden garden. So we're looking at like an Eve situation, right? And at some point when she was 18, she ended up smelling the roses. Baba Yaga was like, all right, now I have to kill you. No, you're too cute. I can't kill you. I turn you into a hedgehog and immediately forget you exist. And the quote, because every character has like a quote that sometimes I tried to work into the story, was, do you have any candy in your bag there? I would love some candy. All I've had to eat are these apples and pears. Because she can eat the fruit without being horribly affected by it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Another very tragic character in this very tragic place. But between what she gave you and a vision that Charlotte didn't recognize was the answer to a puzzle for like 8 minutes or so.
I think Charlotte should have. Olivia didn't recognize what the fucking thing was. Charlotte has an intelligence of 18. I do not.
So between Ilya and the hut itself, you were able to determine the knock sequence and password that would get you into the inner circle and get you to Baba Yaga's chamber. Yes?
Yeah.
And unless there's anything more folks wanted to talk about regarding the orchard, ...
I mean, we did the sequence we went through. The passphrase was "I am Baba Yaga," so you have to be cocky to get there.
So her password is password.
yes and no. Her
Password is
password
1234.
Her password is something that no one who is not Baba Yaga would dare to say was her idea. Because like who's going to say I am Baba? It's like saying Bloody Mary in the mirror 3 times in a reality that you know will actually summon Bloody Mary, right?
Beetlejuice, something other.
Something other. Thank you for not saying it the 3rd time. I don't want to have to deal with that jackass again. So we're going to go ahead. We're going to move into Baba Yaga's personal chamber, but we've been doing this for a couple of hours. So why don't we go ahead and take a quick break? Folks can go and use the restroom and all the other things that you do on a quick break. It is currently 8:23. Why don't we come back at 8:30 Pacific? So 7 minutes, 6.5 minutes. And then we'll get into the big fight of the module. Yeah, one of my favorites. Something that like I said, one of my favorites. Something that I practiced for a long time. But we'll get to that in about 6 minutes. We'll be right back.
Please.
I'm remembering once again to unmute. Friends, hello, welcome back.
Hello.
Yes, thank you. I did see
Hello.
the thing on the visualizer there. So
Before we get into the room,
before we get into the room,
so the theory about the note and like whether or not it was actually Baba Yaga asking us to go on the scavenger hunt, because like the note wasn't signed. Kotan had told us at the very beginning that Baba wasn't in the hut when we got there, and the advice about not leaving the hut, meet me in my private chambers, but if she's not there, why would we meet her? Why does Baba need us to collect items for her in her hut? Like, we
Right.
talked about it in character and out of character of whether or not we were actually, like, who the note was from.
and that
The fact that it wasn't signed, not helpful.
no. And originally, I believe I had intended it to come from Baba Yaga as a test. Everything with Baba Yaga is a test. And I think at the time I was moving towards, and we might still go this way, but I was moving towards Baba Yaga offering an apprenticeship to Charlotte. At which time, bad things, right? Because the first thing that Baba Yaga says is, okay, all your friends are not your friends anymore. You are mine only, right? That's kind of the way Baba rolls. There would have been a really fun scene between Baba Yaga and your current patron that I had planned
say.
that never happened.
Yeah, Charlotte's not entirely her own to give away.
That
at
would
this
have,
point.
I was ready to
Yeah.
address that. I was ready to address that. It would have been dramatic. It would have been amazing. And it might still happen. I don't know how this is going to go. But you, so you had this
think
idea
it's
that
like
it
a
might not be Baba Yaga herself.
Yeah.
Em, what was that?
Yeah.
Why does it look like a skull?
I said the same thing. I'm glad you see it too.
Okay.
Yeah. It's a kind of a goofy skull, but it's kind of a skull. So
Legally distinct Punisher.
at some point, I decided that I wanted. I like getting ideas from my players, especially you all who come up with amazing ideas all the time. So I decided to change it up and bring in Tasha instead. I love Tasha as a character. So that was 100% me. Yes, Tasha is, of course, in the book because she is a daughter of Baba Yaga. I have a lot of lore and stuff from her. I basically made up her stats. That's not quite true. I pulled from a couple of different websites that had stats for Tasha.
She is a wildly popular character of the setting. She has been for years. Literally, there are spells about her. That
There's
she
a book with her
invented.
name on it, right?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Which I believe Gail has right there. So I decided to bring in Tasha and see how you all reacted to that. And the conversation was great. Here's this horrifyingly powerful person, and Charlotte was having no shit.
Yes. Oh man, it was great. So we got in there and we're like, cool, we got all the items on the scavenger list. Let's go see what all this is about. And she's like, hey, what's up? Before I can tell you anything, you have to give me those ingredients to make a potion to wipe all your memories. And Charlotte's like, no. What? Tell
Cue
us now.
Cue Dr. Evil meme of how about no?
It's
It's weird how fast I said no. Shit.
playing a character as absolutely confident and arrogant and hubristic as Tasha is very fun. I'm like, yeah, obviously you're gonna obey me because if you don't, I'll wish you to death. Like I will power word kill you. But nope, not having any of it.
No, that's dumb. What do you mean? Also, hi, you're Tasha. I've heard rumors and legends about you. What is going on?
Yeah, you're still wanted for like 10,000 gold back in Waterdeep.
Wild.
It's not my only bounty. So the one thing I want to mention about the description of this room is the carpet, the rug on the ground. As you walk in and you're interacting with Tasha, this rug is like ragged, it's old, and I believe someone made a correct history check to identify that it is possibly the one thing that Baba Yaga still owns from her whatever they were mortal days. So this rug was very important to her. You were talking with Tasha, and then you were interrupted.
Mm-hmm.
That's a way to say it.
And I got to bust out the Baba Yaga voice.
Uh-huh.
And
because the dotted line on this map is a curtain.
And it does turn out, although it is magical, true sight cannot see through solid anything. Though if there was an illusion, and I believe you noted pretty quickly after Tasha said so that this is not Baba Yaga, it's a simulacrum, right? Yeah. This was a lesser but still horrifyingly powerful creature that Baba Yaga leaves behind when she has business.
Yeah.
And you learned that when she comes back, she reabsorbs it and takes its memories, so it's like she never left.
Right. Which is why we had to kill it.
And then you had a fight.
Yep. And it was a special simulacrum that's immune to dispel, as opposed to the regular simulacrum that specifically lists it lasts until dispel.
You can totally dispel a regular one, yeah. This is more like it's more like a clone, like, yeah. Powerful uber witch magic.
And yeah, we had a fight where Tasha was on our side, and it was still kind of close.
Right, because you weren't just fighting. You weren't just fighting Baba or the simulacrum.
Statues came to life, and then there were golems that came in, and then there were ogres that came in, and then there were like shadow wraith things that came in.
Yeah, that was a great fight. I think I knocked Calder out a couple of times.
No, you didn't. Knocked Maven out a couple of times.
Yeah,
Maven, that's right. Maven was the one
that
that
was
went
the
down.
fight. I could not do a damn thing, and you kept trying to kill me. So
No, that was the one where
definitely
guilty.
know that.
No, there was, however, the crystal golem that rolled like a golden god for everything I sent to attack it.
Yeah.
Everything.
This was the
funny.
whole.
The dice tell a story.
Charlotte went, "Hey, look at me," to Baba the entire time.
If it works, it works.
And Baba Yaga did manage to take out the most powerful and historically most valuable member of the team, Swoops.
Yeah, she toasted him.
And it's about
Sorry,
time.
Ben.
Can I just say, it's about time one of the enemies had the foresight to do that. It's got
What are you
1
talking
HP.
about? That happened in the Forge of Fury
That's
twice.
also true.
It constantly happens, actually.
He ended up dying because he wandered too close to a predator or was in an AOE. Neither of those were deliberate.
He got stabbed once.
The drow killed
drow,
him
that's
on
right.
purpose. It's like, oh shit, that thing has blind sense. Let me kill it.
Okay, that's true.
And then Swoops was like, and died.
Brought him back. What happened to him? I don't know. I died.
I don't know. I died, and it sucked.
Did not see it coming. But you won. Barely. Well, I mean, to be fair, Tasha was never in any danger at any point, right? Like, kind of a little bit, but not really.
But yeah,
You said
failure
she looked
failure
real
was-
winded at the end.
Yeah.
failure would have represented other problems.
Well, then we fought the simulacrum. We had a moment. We turned to Tasha and went, "You didn't check behind the curtain?"
No, I guess not.
I love it. She's such this powerful character who we saw could really hold her own in a combat. But it's that kind of, like you were saying, that hubris, that arrogance that comes from being a very powerful character of, why would I check behind a curtain? I'm going to set up here. Baba's not here. It's fine.
Yeah. There's nothing back there that can hurt me. And also, as you were searching the room, she did mention, don't open that drawer. There's a demi-lich in there. Right? That was one line that happened. Like, that drawer right there, search everything else. It's fine. But don't open that one. Unless you're ready for another fight.
It's fine. Why would it be fine? And then she gave us some rapid rest potions. There was a miscommunication about Calder being a corpse while he sleeps.
Oh gosh, I'm like, because I realized as we were doing that whole scene, I'm like, she would have no fucking clue, like no fucking clue.
Because I think it was like I went unconscious, and then you moved to like someone's like, "Oh no, he's unconscious. He looks fine." It's like, "Oh no."
Actually, he looks dead. And that interrupted because I never got to finish the identify on the little like clock sphere thing up by the bed.
Yeah.
So we never got to identify what the fuck that thing is.
Quick question, am I audible?
Yes.
You are
Yeah.
now.
Okay, my microphone cut out. Thank you all for holding the fort. Please continue.
I was asking, what is that thing on the floor? The like clock
Oh,
thing.
right.
We never finished identifying.
I think you did, because I believe that it's a doomsday clock. It's like a, that how many seconds to midnight doomsday clock. I thought I mentioned that in the scene, maybe not.
Yeah, you did.
Yeah.
It's
It's
an
just we were trying to
abstract-
identify like how it worked, why it was
Right.
working, what it was counting.
And
Like,
then,
is this Baba's doomsday clock or the world's doomsday clock?
and as you were looking at that, that's when the thing happened with Maven and Tasha and Calder's corpse.
Yep.
Right? Okay. And then there was a fight, a firefight. Boondock
Wasn't
Saints.
much of a fight.
No, it wasn't really a fight. But it was great. Like, it was a really good scene. I really enjoyed, like, Maven doing exactly what she should have done and having to be restrained. It's a very barbarian thing, and I appreciate it.
I tried to play her as best I could for a barbarian,
Well, and she's also been through the ringer. Not only has this been like a descent into like, oh god, I'm in a horror story. This is awful. And then you like drop 3 times in a row in combat.
Yeah.
Not having a good day.
I'm not saying that I was targeting you. Yeah, I definitely targeted you directly. Like, she's smart enough to be able to see the very powerful warrior is just standing up. Better tag him a couple more times to knock him down again, right? It was awesome. And you absolutely destroyed it in the end. And, no, sorry, I'm going backwards.
So yeah, what is the doomsday clock? Is it
Right.
Baba's like personal doomsday
Let's-
clock, or is it
let's
just
take a
like
look.
the universe?
So, the cauldrons, by the way, artifacts. Force golems. The rug. Stone circle. Originally built to track the progress of time to a vague apocalyptic event on the material plane. Baba Yaga saw it and saw its potential in its carvings, and the runes twist and change at seemingly random intervals. So it's basically a doomsday clock for the prime material plane, and it was very like close to midnight when you saw it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's basically our doomsday clock. It's how close the world, wherever it is where the world is. How close the world is close to ending.
Right.
And then we took our rest, got back up. Tasha forgot to ask us for the ingredients to the potion, and we went off to get some loot.
so the potion was just for me. It was kind of a MacGuffin. I put it in there just in case we needed a way to hand wave away Baba Yaga's mind reading powers. Right? Like, I had to make a plan for if you decided you wanted to talk to Baba Yaga anyway. So I made the potion as an option for now you can talk to her without worrying about her scanning your mind. Although, Charlotte, you have protection against that now.
Yeah, the spell non-detection.
So you had the fight, you had the other fight, you kind of got things calmed down, everyone's rested, and then you're off to the treasure room. Yeah, Tasha
Yes.
promises a swipe at the treasure room before you leave the hut. but things don't go quite that well.
Well, they did and they didn't.
And I'm going to find, who do I go with first? The first thing that happened was I pulled Swoops, right?
Mhm.
I wanted Tasha and Swoops to be the only two that made it to the treasure room, because Tasha, of course, if she's going to be doing anything with Charlotte, is definitely going to interrogate the little fiend that's on her shoulder. I don't know if we're ever going to know the actual full content of that conversation, but it was not pleasant for Swoops.
Which is a real shame. Swoops loves to have fun, and Tasha was probably just such a wet blanket.
Now, Maven and Charlotte, you ended up in a place that I did not bother to pull the map for. In the book, this is called the Chamber of Hallucinations. In my notes, it was called the Holodeck.
You know, like you do. Fine.
And originally, okay, so I'm just going to go curtain up. The room is controlled by a grell. You know, big brain, chicken beak, tentacles. Very
Okay.
heavily telepathic. It is projecting these images and feelings and sensations to you. It was far enough away that it was outside the reach of your detection spells. And it never did anything directly, but there were some times where I could have like jumped in with a hallucination or a suggestion from it. But I preferred the way you all did it. So the idea of the room is you start with a randomized location, right? Each of you were seeing and experiencing different things. And as you agreed on what you saw and felt, that would become more real.
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Well, and I think Charlotte had all three of the like flock of familiars up, and one of them had come with them, and like it wasn't perceiving anything.
Mm-hmm.
So that was also a nice hint of like, there's something weird going on here.
Yeah. And that came to an end when you agreed that you had, I believe you built a lock in the air and you
We
built a key.
A lock in the air and used my ladle as the key, or we found a lock or something. Yeah, we agreed that there was like a lock there.
It was
because we
it
agreed
was
that there
very
was a
Kingdom
door.
Hearts.
It was very Kingdom Hearts.
So during our moment in there, Charlotte was trying to talk to the hut.
Yes.
The responses she got, were they from the hut or just from the Grell?
They were from the Grell.
Okay.
The hut has been communicating with you as well, but no, that was all the Grell. And then where did
Lakeland.
Lakeland. Yes. That's
And that note we found at
right.
the very beginning, it was like it's told us, do not harm the Green Sisters.
I had to bring you here because otherwise the note wouldn't have made sense. And I loved Lakeland. So
Yeah, this was a fun one.
3 green hags on an island, obviously having a little bit of discord among themselves. The youngest doesn't seem to care for the traditional ways of the older two. And they greet you, and you negotiate with them. Yeah?
Yeah.
And I'm going to give
This was
you
Calder
a
and
chance.
Dell.
Yeah. This was Calder and Dell.
This was all about the tradition. It's all about like pleasing the hags, and I love the concept of the mystical trio. I love that in its mythos and its interactions. And so like it made sense for Calder, the politician, to just like click into that mode. Because he was just perfectly polite, very genteel, and like it resonated really well with M as Dell doing the like mystical caution, like understanding what we're getting into, where I am being very careful of how we're interfacing with it, as to give them what they're saying they want without giving them anything important.
And they specifically wanted something that was of like emotional value, right?
Yeah.
And you gave them the signet ring that you got back in the Sunless Citadel, which is a significant item. It's not your family's, but it's a thing that you picked up in your first adventure together.
And I described it as this is a sigil of noble office, and described it as such.
And so they accepted your offering, and one of them offered Dell her phone number, and
Tabitha.
I'm sorry?
Tabitha.
Yep.
Was the crone the mother and Tabitha.
And they granted, essentially, Calder and Dell a chance to see their brother. I know where they are, I can bring them here, or we can bring them here.
Yeah.
And then you had a
I.e.,
fight.
Like, i.e., we want you to see them so that you can make it so they're not killing our residents anymore.
And we brought back Gale as the one and only Anton. And we had a fight right
one of the
here
most
in
satis-
Lakeland.
One of the most satisfying fights I've been thinking about since I introduced the concept of Anton. I expected a lot more banter when I was imagining it. So, like, the idea that we get to this final moment and it's just so anticlimactic because what I'm fighting isn't really him. It's the green vines that are puppeting him, and that's just took all the fun out of it.
So, yeah.
Rob had asked me to play Anton. I'm like, yeah, totally, I can do that. So it was like looking over his character sheet, whatever. And it was like an hour before when we were recording, and I was like, oh, how do you want me to play him? Do you want him to be like taunting? Do you want him to be really mean? And he's like, don't say anything. And I'm like, oh, okay, okay.
So,
I see.
Jeff and I have gamed together a lot. And there are two things that I know I can do with him in a scene. One is put him in a position where he has to do the sort of courteous, right, keep all the forms, that sort of negotiation. And also just do the one thing that I know you don't want, because I knew you wanted the banter. And I wanted to really hammer home the fact that he is not in control, right? It's not him. You are fighting a doll, essentially. And I saw that sink in, and it was very satisfying.
But it's like for me, that was like the moment that Calder started taking the fight more seriously, because it's like, okay, you're not my brother anymore. You're math.
Well, and also he got hit a lot.
And I can do math. T-Rex.
Let's be real. Like, Calder got hit a lot before he T-Rexed out.
I was coming for you.
Yeah, I am so happy. I forced the action surge early.
That combat did not have to go that way. Like, it could have very well gone the other way.
Like if people had remembered what their spells actually did and multiple things they were concentrating on. But...
Yeah, it happens.
It happens.
Whoa now. You can't call people out like that.
Y'all have to understand, I'm already studying for the final fight in this campaign because there's so much that I'm going to have to track. I'm already, like, quizzing myself on it. It's going to be a lot. So you should tune in, like, and subscribe.
I'm turning my camera off just as a heads up.
Okay. So, Lakeland, you fight against Anton. Chomper was turned early, and then you hunted him down, and he was not the challenge, right? He was the one you were supposed to pity.
He was more numbers to worry about.
But yeah, I mean, you did not want to leave him behind because they were theoretically spreading the blight into the hut.
No Chompies left behind.
Right. That was why the Green Sisters ultimately agreed to whatever you wanted, because they did not want the blight spread into Lakeland.
I do want to ask, because Jeff thought about it for a second and then ultimately didn't do it, but the plan of like casting blight down on the area they knew where Chomper was, what would have happened if he had just said, fuck this particular part of the hag's domain? Like, what would the hags have done?
I am glad I did not have to make that decision. I feel like, I don't know. There would have been a price. I don't know exactly at this moment how it would have come. I don't think they would have jumped into combat because I didn't really have good stats for them. That's not what they do.
And
I
also,
probably would have spawned something, or I don't know.
And hey, the safety of Lakeland was never part of the negotiations.
No, it really wasn't. But, like, true.
But neither was your safety.
Oh, that was the other thing. Like, I mentioned to anyone who had a high enough nature that, like, the whole area was very much in tune to these three, right? It moved kind of as they moved. That was really fun. And then I believe we all came back together
in the treasury.
In the treasury, which I made up. To be clear, there is a treasury in this book. I did not read it. I knew I wanted to do the casino thing from the beginning. So that was all me. You can blame me for that one.
I don't blame you for the casino thing. I blame you for things that are technically not in your control.
And that's it's cruel
dice.
to make Jeff roll dice. That's mean.
Look, if he rolled dice more, then maybe it wouldn't be so bad.
So I had everything from the giant sack, you know, the sack with giant stuff in it, like a tombstone and like a beehive. Everything from that up to tens of thousands of GP worth of gems, up to legendary magical items, as Jen found out twice in one pull. So I had you roll 3 times on a completely random table where you could get basically anything. And Jen rolled a Staff of the Magi.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
An Ebony Fly, which is awesome, but fucking Staff of the Magi. And then a Belt of Storm Giant Strength. The most powerful strength belt in the game. Rolled randomly. And you had to choose
Wait a second.
the Barbarian between the 29 strength and the obscenely versatile Staff of the Magi.
For another character.
For another character.
Yeah.
And also I threw in some stuff about it being ancient dwarven history.
I was just going to say, Denbar was a storm giant skeleton. Is that his belt?
Yeah, I mean, I had that thought when we were talking about that.
headcanon accepted.
He was a king storm giant. That might be his belt.
If it wasn't magical when he was put into when he was killed, it is now.
Yeah, what it sets your strength to like
29.
8 or something? 29.
29. It is a +9 modifier. When you
can
put it
punch
together with a
rocks.
magical melee weapon, it's broken as hell. We're coming up near the end of the campaign, so I don't mind. I have no problem with you having a +90 bazillion to hit at this point.
And damage. And yeah.
And then after that, you wanted to have a conversation about what the plan is. And we went, and I do believe I have the map for this one, to Tasha's room, which is a place she has not been in for a very long time. Story. Baba Yaga. And I am pulling that up.
Tasha's safe room?
I don't think I put it into my table of contents. Like I said, I imported all this stuff by hand, so I missed some stuff. Let's see if I can find Tasha's. Natasha's quarters. There it is. Okay.
Yeah.
So you come into this room, and the room itself wasn't super duper important. The fountain in the middle is actual, like, sparkling mineral water. But there's also other horrible things about this that you're probably going to discover now that you're in there alone, but we're going to get to that in a minute.
Yeah, so the whole party came in, we regrouped, talked about Charlotte put extra magical protections around the room, and then we talked about Tasha's plan to try to stop Baba Yaga using the energy with the tree and whatever the fuck. Belak and Morgenthau are doing with it for her own means to make herself immortal. And Tasha's like, hey, we could actually disrupt that and probably kill her with it instead. And then Delmain and Calder casually mentioned that they had their dead brother in 2 bags.
Not just one.
Hey, like I said, no one important.
It's only practical.
And then Charlotte was like, hey, wasn't that brother, like, in the camp of the enemy and might know a bunch of shit about the thing we're planning about? And
just had that moment of, probably.
I am curious if Del had tried to, like, sanctify the area before we tried to res Anton, would that have done anything?
I don't think Sanctified Ground has any effect on Ray's Dead, no.
It also takes 24 hours to cast, y'all.
Ah, okay.
I did it at the Stone Tooth, and it took like the full time. I don't know, it might not take 24 hours. Like a full flat ass hour.
It's a giant casting time.
Yeah.
It takes forever, and I had to have a scroll of it. I don't actually have that like in me. That
And you
was,
know what?
like,
If you
on the
do it
piece of
wrong,
paper.
your
And
bard
if you do
comes
it bad,
back.
then you have to do it twice.
Your bard comes back a little fucky, you know.
It happens, man.
It does. It does. It does. It does.
Anyway. So
I was just wondering if there's anything in this room that's particularly like if certain kinds of magic get cast in here, shit happens.
let me take a look. So the cauldron you'll find is powered by bound demons, basically. There is other stuff. Most things are more or less protected from most magic. Though if you throw around some big stuff, you might be able to burn something. But, like, there are books and other things, but most of this is almost painfully mundane. Like, this is not a space that this person comes to often.
She hasn't enchanted it up, down, sideways, all over. This was kind of just her room.
Pretty much. Like, there are magics around, but only if you try to damage something.
And yeah, we talked to Anton, found out he had a geas put on him.
It's like,
Accidentally triggered
it's like,
that.
Yep, that's a geese. Cure the geese. Now let's remove it from it.
A geese that came back.
Immediately heal him.
A geese that stayed with him beyond death, to be clear.
It's unclear if geese wears off upon death. It's
Right.
very weird. Because frankly, that would be a very easy cure of, oh, well, I'm just going to stab myself, cast Revivify.
That's morbid as hell.
No,
You're not wrong.
Let me see.
But you're out of line.
But like Charlotte dispelled it, we got on to talking. Oh, and while it took like an hour for Calder to bring Anton back, Del and Maven had a chess match.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yes. And it's like criminally underused in our game as far as I'm concerned, because I do love the connection to the Shadowfell, to the realm of shadows of Faerun, because it's such a fun location. It's such a fun little corner of the lore.
Yeah.
But it's so hard to interface with.
Yeah, no, the Geas says specifically, you as the caster can end it with an action, or it requires remove curse, greater restoration, or wish. It lasts for 30 days, regardless if the target dies or not.
Yeah, but it means that he was given that geese, like, presumably, like I imagine it was probably Belak, like, being overzealous in treating their prisoner.
Well, I mean, Belak lost the blue dragon that was under his control.
Right.
Yeah.
So I think after that, he'd be like, okay, let me put some like fail safes on these puppets in case they get, taken out.
Well, especially since the consequence of failing a geese is damage. So like it immediately knocks him back out, has him making death saves again. Yeah.
Yeah.
But of course, you just heal him back up, and he comes back again.
Remove the geese and continue the interrogation, and I loved it because it is the thing I've wanted since he was brought in, which is him being this bright, like, champion to everyone, but this utter prick in all other moments, and to finally like see that in display, because we've seen it like behind the veneer up until now, and to like finally see it like, oh yes, this is who he really is.
Right.
Poor Maven is still going through the horrors of not only seeing Calder do his weird shadow magic to like, bring this guy back, but then also gets to find out, oh yeah, he's kind of an asshole. Okay.
Oh right, my hero kind of sucks.
Never meet them.
Well, because
Never
Maven had heard about Anton from her sons,
Right.
who were in the like army that he helped lead.
As far as the Dwarven army is concerned, Anton is still a hero, right? I believe.
Yep. We made a point to like.
You made a
keep
point
his
to make
legend
him a
alive,
hero.
and to make him a hero, and to keep his legend alive, even though after we knew he was taken, because, and I pushed for that because I'm like, it was the way that it was presented to Calder is that he turned coat and moved to the other army, and Calder immediately went bullshit. That is not a thing he would do.
And got confirmation of that.
Yeah, we finally got a confirmation of that, and I love that trope of I hate him more than any other person alive, so I know him really well.
This is also the conversation where I got to put into place the second like theory and crafting I had come across over the course of this dungeon of the Charlotte's gonna stay behind.
Mm-hmm.
Like, now that we know that Baba is indeed working with our enemies and she needs the hut for her spell and Tasha needs it too, like being an agent on the inside made sense for Charlotte.
Yeah.
And I really enjoyed everybody's like role play when Charlotte like actually brought that up and like told people about it.
Like, Calder voiced his opinions. It's like, no, this is a terrible idea. But you were resolved to do it anyway, and his response to that is, I'm an adventurer. Sure. Because, like, once you saw that this is what you wanted to do, okay.
Well, and I really liked, too, how, like, as busy as this dungeon was, going through the hut, having to deal with something new in every single room, we still had moments to have really cool character like development, because we had two new characters with this specific dungeon. We had Maven come in and we had Dell come in, and we'd had a little bit like half a session beforehand with Dell before we launched into this new arc, and I really enjoyed getting to know Maven and Dell through not just what we were doing to get through the rooms, but everything in between as well.
Yeah, I loved the microcosm for Dell. I like the glimpses that we get, like, of the, oh yeah, this is part of a much bigger, much sillier universe.
Multiverse.
Yeah, multiverse, strictly speaking. But the just to use Dell as like the POV camera for that, just to like, oh yeah, okay, that's what's going on. Was fun. I love that because Faerun is a silly place.
So really quick, I do want to go through and do like favorite memories and stuff. It's getting a little bit late for some folks.
Yeah.
There are, of course, a bunch of rooms that you didn't get to, but I feel like that's probably a little bit too much at the moment. That said, as a module, before we go on to like all the best things that happened, as a module, what did you all think of the setting, of the characters, and of the set dressing that you got on the maps and such? Like, how'd you feel about this thing?
Go ahead.
I really liked it.
I had fun.
I like social puzzles. I like D&D moments that aren't hinging on combat at every scene, and the combats that were there felt like I loved it because the goal wasn't, and then we killed the other guy. It was very often like trying to survive or trying to endure or trying to figure out the other way out of this, and that always felt very fun. The one person I had to fight was the one person I had been screaming for many sessions of wanting to fight. So I really liked it.
Yeah, I liked that it has a lot of emphasis on, like, you sometimes have to fight, but often there are other ways to do things, and if those things break down, then maybe you fight anyway, right? That's kind of the way it goes, and I appreciate that. It does take, admittedly, a DM with some experience, I think, because when there are so many possible options, you have to be able to roll with whatever batshit nonsense players come up with, right?
And they will.
And they will.
What I really liked most about this was because of the non-linearness, because we couldn't just be like, okay, we're on floor 2, the west side. Like, there was always this, it felt like a fairy tale. It felt like going through a circle, a magical portal, and not, there's no guarantee that even if you go back the exact same way that everything's going to be as you left it. And so it thematically, all of the settings in the rooms and the how you get between the rooms, it all came together to really give this feeling of going deeper into a dungeon without actually like going lower into like a traditional dungeon. It felt like we were getting deeper and deeper into the story as opposed to deeper and deeper into the earth.
Yeah.
I appreciate that. Like, I was really going for that particular vibe, so I'm glad it came across. You made your way out, which was our last session, which I do not have any longer. But it was not a super complex plot, right? It was mostly just let's go and retrace our steps, get back to the beginning, and there were a few interactions along the way. Yeah,
it was there was a bit of comedy in it because Charlotte's staying behind, but to help keep up the ruse, y'all called her seeming Anton to look like Charlotte, so he had to pretend to be Charlotte while we're like trying to get out through all these rooms,
which we managed with surprising aplomb.
Yes, I'm sad that I don't have that
mouth shut.
because
mostly because we shut him up.
Yeah.
And, it is canon that Del went and grabbed the fire wine and got it to Volcanus, so Fiendclaw gets to leave.
Yep.
At some point, I will share with all of you the contents of the rooms you didn't get to.
It's also canon that Del has a cardboard cutout of himself.
Multiple cardboard cutouts, I believe.
Well, at least one cardboard cutout of himself.
Was there anything else on the way out? I know that Maven had to, of course, pass by the menagerie and the trophy room again on the way out. So I'm sure there was a little bit of a difficulty there.
It's kind of that moment of just put on the blinders and go.
Put on the blinders and go, right? We understand that we're in the nightmare now. We just need to get out, right?
It's like when you can tell
the poor old
reaching.
The reader in the library is like, "Oh, I found this book that I think you might." Goodbye.
Just funny. It's like the people just trying to get through the haunted house who are no longer enjoying the haunted house. Just like go. Follow the arrows on the floor and get out.
It's like, yeah, we were rude, but we're never going to see these things again, so I don't care.
Well, yeah, we were polite to Khotan as they got through the gate again. That was about it.
As a rule, be nice to the guides who can shoot you in the back.
And I believe we ended that session. Oh, go ahead.
Well, because we had also heard, like, the thing about the treasure room that Tasha didn't tell us until we'd already pulled the lever, like, 5 times, is that, oh yeah, Baba can sense when someone's pulling this lever specifically. We should probably, like, be heading out soon.
And Tasha, of course, the moment you teleported out, was no longer there. Right. She did
No,
not come out
please.
with you, but Fel did. The nice little halfling copper dragon that you befriended did stay with you, and as you exited the hut, his gratitude toward you allowed him to trust you enough to step through the teleportation circle and back to the Stone Tooth, which is where we start our next session, which we already recorded, but it's still the next session.
The home of a black dragon.
The home of a
It'll
black.
be fine.
Fine.
It's dragons all the way down here at Bad Decisions Club presents.
Honestly, I think Nightscale needs more friends.
Friends, yes. I'm sure a bunch of snooty metallic dragons are really going to impress the emo kid.
Fel is not snooty.
This is
To be
literally
fair.
a metallic called the Flying Misfortune. You'll be fine.
Like, Fel is a walking disaster. If anything, Nightsail's gonna look at him and be like, okay, I'm not that bad. I'm doing all right.
At least I am not internationally known for having disaster follow in my
Shut the
wake.
fuck up. Yes.
As a supposed hero.
Oh man. We've covered everything we did pretty thoroughly. And it's been about 3 hours since the start of the stream. Does anyone want to share any other last thoughts, any last memories, anything they enjoyed as we begin to move on to the next arc, which I still have not come up with a title for?
Well, I thought Wedding Bells was our next goal.
Wedding Bells is a really good idea. I might steal that.
Feel free. Have at. Therefore, I have thwarted you. You can't steal it.
I just really want to say, because I know they're not going to be as the main PCs in the next upcoming arc, that I did really enjoy getting to meet Maven and getting to meet Dell. And as wacky as the hut is, it didn't feel like a traditional dungeon. There was a lot of, we got to choose when we got to pause and take a break and really think about things. And so it was nice playing Charlotte again, and Calder is the rock of the entire Bad Decisions Club from start to finish. But it was really nice to see Maven learning about the horrors and Dell just having a Tuesday.
This is my job. It's what I do. I just normally don't have quite so many rookies around me.
I do have a question for Jen.
Yeah.
After this first romp, is Maven gonna continue trying to be an adventurer?
That's a good question.
I think, if I could offer an opinion, I think this would be fun. It's too late. Because that's what happens to adventurers. Once you start, you can't not see the things. You're just going to start seeing problems that you know that you can solve because you're an adventurer. No, wait.
Yeah, I mean,
Because Reluctant Heroes are just a really fun trope.
yeah, it's really, that's a tough one. I think she actually might. But I think that it's going to be dependent on a few things.
She needs to
Yeah.
add a clause in her adventuring contract of does not do huts. Do not ask.
No fairy tale nonsense. Please and
No
thank you.
fairy tale nonsense. I am only here for just.
I will stick to the letter. I will stick to the letter of my contract and never venture from that ever again.
Oh God, just yeah.
I'm giving
But then we'll-
space in case anyone wants to keep talking. Go ahead.
I did like the it's the characterization. I love the interactions and the relationships that forged over the game, and both long lasting and for both long lasting and short term relationships that were involved. Because it was really fun to have Charlotte around Calder as a peer. Because they're both spellcasters, but they're wildly different spellcasters.
Yeah, and they fought once already. I mean, they sparred once already.
And I didn't use my most bonkers spells at that time. It felt wrong.
Yeah. Well, and I do think too it was fun, not only getting to pair Calder with Charlotte again, but also getting to see Calder post his family revelations, and then also Dell is here, and then confronting Anton. This was a lot of it was a family reunion unexpectedly in the hut of Baba Yaga for Calder and siblings. So
Like, I am positive that it's because we have some sort of ancient family connection to Baba Yaga, because that's how our family drama and her family drama just resonated to each other.
well, Tasha's a warlock, right?
No, she's big on wizard.
But I thought she had contracts with demons and devils.
You can have contracts without being a warlock.
That's fair.
I ran her as a
No.
wizard
And
with
also-
some extra slots and some extra abilities. Some
Also,
legendary
her
shit.
boyfriend's her boyfriend's a devil. It's a whole thing.
There. Okay, yeah. I was remembering some connection, but yeah.
Oh yeah,
No,
she's straight up dating the devil that tried to kidnap and torture her. She seduced him, and now he's just the boy.
When you honeypot the honeypot.
Yeah, it's great stuff.
But yeah, I really enjoyed, because when you first suggested the idea of doing the Baba Yaga hut as a going to get info, going to get items, preparation towards the final full moon, I was like, that's really cool. Echo is not the character for that kind of adventure, but Charlotte is, and I didn't fully intend it heading into this campaign, but it was an option in my head of Charlotte making a deal or otherwise remaining in the hut, and I'm glad that actually paid off.
Yeah, like I said, I was planning for you to apprentice to Baba Yaga. Like I had storylines and tests.
Rob, write down the name Final Full Moon. That's a good one.
Final Full Moon. Done. I'm writing it down right now. I'm writing it down. Okay, so I want to just say really fast the names of the rooms you didn't go to, and then we can say goodnight. Okay? So these are just the titles of the rooms that I bothered to put into the fantasy grounds, because a lot of things I knew you weren't going to get to. But we have the staff halls, which is where the ogres live. The forge you did go to. The pools of paradise, the grinding gears, the keep of the wine cellar, the alchemy laboratory, the observatory of the all eye, which would have been bad, so I'm glad you didn't go there, the stable of nightmares, and the Colosseum of ancient sands. Oh, and the crystal grotto. Those are the names of the
stable of nightmares.
The stable of nightmares.
Like the horse creature.
They're absolutely nightmare horses in there. Yes, 100%.
That would have been so good.
And the stable actually connects to the forest or to the orchard. So like you had that door there.
Nightmares in D&D are unicorns that have lost their horns violently. They are not nice creatures.
No, they are not nice creatures.
They're uniformly really dark, really cold. They're evil, but they're not like strictly evil in that sense, because they can be tamed. They can be brought to become a mount and tamed like all magical things can. They're just kind of fucking extra metal about it.
They've been through some shit.
They've been through some shit.
Sorry, that was the one I had to ask for clarification on. It's a good name. Stable of Nightmares.
It's the stable of nightmares. Oh my god, what's in there? Nightmares.
Yeah.
Nightmares. Yeah.
Well, I wasn't sure what I was expecting, but
and the night hag that keeps them, Gabby Ratcackle.
Hags! Oh no!
oh, that's so good.
So depending on what time it is when you go there, the nightmares might be out among the material plane wreaking havoc, right? Or they might be there and you have to fight them, or maybe Gabby Rat Cackle, I read that right, is there as well. Like there's a bunch of different things there, but sadly you never made it to that room.
Nope.
Friends, this has been a hell of a module. I think that I would definitely recommend this, but if someone is thinking about running the Dancing Hut of Baba Yaga, do your homework first. You have to know how everything connects together before you start putting together what story you want to tell, because it's more like a canvas, right? It's a bunch of locations and personalities and miniature stories that you can weave into your own story. It's amazing that way, but you definitely have to put the legwork in, believe me. Let's talk a little bit about where folks can find you and follow you, and then we will call this a stream. Let's start with Gail. You're on top this time. Where can people find you and follow your stuff?
Yes, I have a Tumblr where I post fan art and fiction and sometimes wild theories that end up being true, like the note is from Tasha. So I'll put it in the chat. It's a measure of separation and it's misspelled.
I love taking ideas from my players. It works awesomely because it makes you feel like you got it right, which you did, and it makes me feel like I'm doing a good job, which I am. Jeff.
You can find me on all the things that's still tired and angry, because I am both of these things.
Entirely fair and valid, especially in the year 2024. Em, are you with us?
I'm here.
Where can we find you?
When I exist as one silver key on all the places. If it's one silver key, it's probably me.
And finally, Jen, talk to us.
I am Jen Winterrose. I am the Swedish Geek Ball. I exist as the Swedish Geek Ball in many places, and also I exist as Winterrose Art and Illustration. So,
friends, if you enjoy this content, make sure you stay tuned because we are coming up on the end of this campaign. I've got some amazing plans and I've got some big holes that I still have to fill in. But either way, in the next few months, we're going to be wrapping this up, friends. One thing I want to let you know about is at the end of the wedding, which is going to be part of the next session, so you should definitely tune in for that, the wedding of Meepo and Yuzdrael. At the end of that session, I'm going to be giving you all a level up. So be thinking about what you want to do with your next level, with all of your myriad characters.
Wait, hold on. What happens to Charlotte when she's in the fountain in the room? You said you would tell us.
Let me see if there's... I don't think there's anything about it. It's just mineral water. Like, you're just making it dirty.
No.
But it has a purify, like, spell in it, so it stays clean. So as long as you don't drink it for like a few minutes after you get out of it, you're fine. But also maybe don't spend too much time in Tasha's room. Okay. Then again, it is the perfect hiding spot for someone who's, I don't know. And that's everybody. We're going to go ahead and hopefully stream the next session in 2 weeks on whatever that Tuesday is. Hopefully we can record and I can edit between now and then. It's going to be awesome. We've already recorded the first half of it, and I'm really looking forward to sharing it with all of you. Thank you very much for watching, and we'll see you next time.
Peace.